Okay, here we go. It's a Josh Whippy's reading.
Wait.
Oh, hey.
Come on.
Good to see you.
Hey,
there.
I hear that's a pretty good book you got there, buddy.
Look, this one's even better.
Is that another book from you?
Yeah.
Oh, your second book.
This is
You didn't send me that one.
Hold on,
gotta send
but
you
this
this
one is
Even
the
better.
stuff right here.
Destiny. There you go.
This is the
That's
intimate.
awesome.
This is the Intimacy of Worship by Denise Lamastra.
Wow. Looks
See,
like
we
we
gotta
got a
send you the
writer
trio.
here. No kidding.
Let's just read. Let's just all read each other's
A
books.
paragraph from each book.
Well, there actually was when I was reading this the other day. I'm not joking. I was reading this, but
Well, I'm glad.
I think this is my favorite line right here. If what you believe about God is too easily shaken by circumstance, then your belief has to become anchored in something greater. Believe that He is. He is good. He is faithful. He is your healer. He is your victory. Cling to the truth that He is everything you need. I love that. It's awesome.
Yes.
I basically plagiarized that
Lamastra.
from Joel Osteen. Just that's where me and Alex Seidler get all of our content. We just copy Joel Osteen.
And then you just put the
Terrible.
word Jesus in there somewhere.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Just
yeah. Yep.
drop it somewhere. I'll make it right.
That's
Just
great.
say Jesus.
Well, that's cool, man. Thanks for reading that.
Yeah. It's a good book. It's
Yeah.
a great book.
It is a great book. Great
Yeah.
book.
Should be coming out
How are
in
you guys?
Spanish sometime. Sometime
We're
soon.
good, man. We're so
No.
good. Thanks for being here. Thanks for being here, buddy. I forgot for a second that we were live.
I know, right?
Yeah, welcome.
Yeah.
Welcome to the Josh Whippy podcast. I'm so glad to have you
Yes,
guys here.
yeah, the Josh Whippy hour, the JWE experience, or no, the J. Yeah,
Yeah,
never mind. That doesn't make sense. The Josh Whippy experience.
No, it doesn't.
Whippy.
JWE. Yeah, it works. Josh Whippy experience.
Yeah,
I
it'd
like
be
it.
the
I like
JWE.
it.
But then you wouldn't need to say experience because that's what the E stands for. That's why I was like,
Yep.
I must
No,
tell
it's
you
good.
that
Anyway.
when I first met you, it was kind of hard for me to pronounce your name. I'm pretty sure I probably said it wrong.
I think I remember this.
A whole
How do you
bunch of
say it?
times.
Say. I think
I
I
was like,
had you say it.
Whippy? Like,
Yeah.
how do you Whippy?
cool whip.
Quippy?
Yeah.
Quippy? I don't know. You know,
Quippy?
W's and Q's are strange in Spanish, and probably
I
my
think you
accent
just,
was a lot thicker. So
It was, and I think I remember actually. Now you just jogged my memory. I think I would go to you and ask you to say my name because you would say it like so funny. I think I
Yeah.
remember that now. That little Mexican chick says my name so funny. Where is she? Where is she? Yeah, I remember those days. Good stuff. Good stuff. Oh, I lost you guys. I lost your audio.
Oh, my bad. I hit the mute
there
button.
you go.
I need to keep my
Oh, we're back.
Trying to
My
keep
hands off.
the Mexican out of the audio, right? So what you're trying to do?
Every time you talk, I'm just gonna mute it.
No, but
Yeah.
it was really funny to me that like there was somebody, I can't remember who was. There's a few people that like will come and ask me that like be staring at me, and I'll feel a little uncomfortable because I was like, I'm not sure if they're like trying to see there's something in my face or what, and then they'll be like, do you know that movie with Salma Hayek? I don't even know the name of the movie, and I was like, what movie? I'm not sure what you're talking about. Because Salma Hayek was not really a big artist like in Mexico per se. Like maybe when I was like a lot younger, but you know, she's famous here like in America a lot more than she's famous in Mexico. So it was funny to me that everybody assumed that like I knew her or that I knew, you know. I'd be like, yeah, you kind of look like her. And I was like,
You're both from
Do you
Mexico.
know her?
You have to know each other.
I was like, yeah, I'm pretty
Mexico's not a big country or anything.
I was like, I'm pretty sure the only similarity we have is that we have dark hair and brown skin.
And you
That's
speak
And you're from
Spanish.
Mexico.
Oh yeah, and we speak
And you're
Spanish.
short.
And we,
Let's just be
there you go.
honest. Just, you know.
I
There
guess
there was a few
there's
more
a few
similarities there than you
I
realize.
guess. Yeah. But yeah, that was funny.
But your
Anyway.
accent is way better than hers for sure.
Yeah.
Yeah, I have this pet peeve about listening to Latino
I mean her
people
English accent, not her.
that have really, really thick like accent when they speak other languages, whether it's English or something else. I can tell that I sound very different. The tone of my voice is very different when I speak Spanish. Even Duke makes fun of me.
Can you give me your best? Can you give me your best like white person imitation? Can you do that?
Like, oh
Come
my
on, come
God,
on, give me
girls.
that.
Like
Oh,
that,
boy,
like
girl.
prissy
Good.
girls.
She went straight Valley Girl.
She
I'll be
did.
like, my goodness, really? Like just very like prissy. That would be that's literally how
Way to marginalize the white race, Denise,
I'm sorry, but
to
and-
14-year-old girls.
but then listen, like I would speak English, I guess maybe with that tone with the teams in Mexico, and people would look at me like, we don't all talk like that. I'll be like, oh, I'm sorry, I've never been to the States, so I don't know.
Wow. Wow.
And
Here
then
you are
sometimes
living in
we'll
the
have
States.
teams from like the South, or they will have like really really thick accent, and it would be
Mhm.
hard to understand them because I'd be like, I'm not. Can you say that like slower and still be
Mhm.
really hard to understand? I'm sure people probably have the same problem when like we're speaking Spanish and like we're speaking really fast or something. I know Duke did. It will be hilarious. We'll be in the middle of a conversation and Duke will say like "Hola," like to the person, and then the
Yeah.
person
I
will
knew what
just
Ola meant right from the beginning.
like they'll start really slow so that he would understand, and then in a matter of an instant they'll just go full speed, and Duke will be like, like he'll just
Yeah.
smile and be lost the entire time in the conversation. I was like, this is so terrible.
So
I
my
think-
so
Anyway.
one of my wife's pet peeves is like sometimes I'll talk to her like a Mexican like
Cholo.
cholo.
Oh my god.
Oh, nice.
Like, hey mami, and I'll just like talk
Oh,
to her
I
kind of
can't
like
stand that. Like my skin literally. Imagine a cat like getting all like curled up. That's
Well,
what happens when he does
I'll walk
that.
in the room with one of those like button down shirts where like just like the top button is buttoned and the rest is like kind of open, and I'll just be like,
oh, nice.
yeah, she
that's
loves
great.
it. It's her favorite thing.
No.
I got
no.
a friend of mine. He was going to my church for a while. He was ex-Amish, which was just awesome. But the Amish, I
Ex-Amish.
don't know if you, yeah. So he was ex-Amish. He was in his 20s, late 20s, and him and his wife were coming here for a while. But he was telling me stories about how he could speak Yiddish. So Yiddish is like, I think it's just some German. It's only
Yeah.
Amish speak it. Is what I've been told. So he or Pennsylvania Dutch, I think they call it as well. And it sounds so foreign, but he will. So now he looks like us. He looks English. He's not Amish anymore, but he likes messing with people when he sees Amish in a store or something and starts speaking to them in that, and they get all uncomfortable and weird because he knows what they were saying about him. He knows what they're all that kind of stuff. Or I hear some of my other missionary friends that are constantly going to like my friend Andy, who's in Asia, and he hears them calling him a white devil, and he'll clap back and respond to them saying like, how dare you talk to me like that, that kind of stuff, where I understand what you're saying, and they get all white in the face, scared.
I know.
Love it.
Okay, here we go. Yiddish. I googled it. A language used by Jewish people in Central and Eastern Europe before the Holocaust. It was originally a German dialect with words from Hebrew and several modern languages, and it's today spoken mainly in the U.S., Israel, and Russia.
Wow. So it's like
I wonder if Yiddish
that
is.
would be like, I guess like in Mexico itself, there's like all these different like dialects. So we would have like when we first moved here to the States, we when we moved back here to Alabama, there's like I don't know exactly. I think at the time there was like the statistics said that there was like about 10,000 or over 10,000 like Latino people living in Alabama, or at least in the area where we were.
Right. Yeah, I remember that.
And it was interesting. We would meet people from like Guatemala, and I mean they speak Spanish in Guatemala, but when you would talk to them, or when you would hear them talk to each other, they actually don't speak Spanish. Spanish is not their main language, and we found out that for a lot of them, English is actually easier to understand than Spanish, because somehow their dialects have some similarities to it. So they would actually talk to each other in like dialect, and then they'll know like a few Spanish words here and there. So I was like, wow, like
Well, I was just looking. It's the Amish don't speak Yiddish technically. It's only Pennsylvania Dutch, but it's kind of similar to what you're saying.
Okay.
It's
Yeah.
they say it's very similar. Like there's a lot of similar, kind of like what you're saying. There's a lot of
Yeah.
similarities. I don't know why I called it Yiddish. I just kind of maybe too much of The Office or something where I think Dwight says that at one
Maybe
point.
that's what it was. Yeah.
He likes German, he likes that old school German. But
Yeah.
yeah, it's that stuff is wild to me. And the only reason why I want to learn a different language is to find out what people are saying about me. Like, because that would
I
be
think
awesome.
everybody I think everybody wants that. Yeah, like my kids, we're trying to teach them some Spanish. And I don't want my kids to learn another language because I force them to, I
Hmm.
want them to want to communicate in a different language.
Right.
So and they're little, so I don't want them to be pochos either, which is like people that speak Spanglish or people that,
Mm.
mix both languages. So
It's
it's my preference that they learn English
that's kind of my favorite thing
correctly.
ever, though.
I
I
mean, I
mean,
don't
it's
mind if
not.
they do it like at home, I guess, but do you know what I mean? I don't want them going out
Yeah.
somewhere and then just
Like, I just
sounding
love it when people
ignorant.
are like, "I'm gonna go to the tienda para comprar some shoes." Like, I just love when people do that. They just like
I mean,
they
we
go
do
down
that
the
on purpose. Like we do that on purpose. Like I'll do that, I'll be like in the kitchen trying to do something or doing something, and I can't think of the word in English, so I'll just blurt it in Spanish because I know he speaks Spanish, so he knows what I'm talking about.
That is cool. That is
So,
cool.
so my kids will do that. Like I will, come in to the room or the office wherever Duke sits, and I'll just if I'm not sure how I feel about what I want to say, I'll just rip it in Spanish and I'll just say it in Spanish.
Mm.
And my kid and Elijah, at least Elijah's like eavesdropping, and he's like, "You were talking about this, right? You were talking about that.
Yeah.
No, you
Yeah.
said
Yeah,
happy.
yeah,
Did
yeah.
you say this?" And I'm like,
Mm.
just
Yeah,
mind your business, child. Like I don't want to
Yeah.
do what I'm trying to say because
So
sometimes it might be something about them.
so your church, you were saying yesterday, Duke, that your church, you have an all Spanish service, right?
we do.
Yes,
Yeah,
At your do your kids attend that?
yes and no.
not really.
They'll sit there and
No.
listen for a little bit, and then they'll
Yeah.
they'll go. They'll
Yeah,
go away.
Yeah. Gotcha.
Partially.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean when they
Because
were
they
Elijah
were
more
when
so.
yeah
Our oldest, he's 10. He spends more time in there.
yeah.
Some weeks he'll be in
I
there the
mean
whole service,
he was
but not
born in
generally.
Mexico, if that works on his favor, and
Mm.
he's been to Mexico with us in a mission trip. So
Okay.
They both
Gotcha.
have.
he oh yeah, they both were there.
But Josiah was like,
Yeah,
what,
he was
2,
little.
3?
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
Yeah.
So
And now,
he talks with his grandparents in like broken
mm,
English and Spanish. So because
mhm.
both my parents speak, you see, speak no
Now she's.
speak.
That was a racial slur right
It
there.
was.
Oh.
I guess you're allowed to get away with that.
They
Wow.
both speak broken English. My brother is probably the
Mm,
one that speaks, better English.
mm,
So they, they say different things or they'll ask. And he stayed actually with my parents like one time when we were on that trip, and my mom was like, it was a little like nerve wracking because I couldn't understand, some of the things he was saying. So they had to like kind of figure it out how to communicate with
Yeah.
each other. So it was
They're
pretty
trying to figure
funny.
it out. And then you guys
Yeah.
got another one on the way. Congratulations. That's awesome.
Woo!
Yes.
We
Number
sure do.
3.
Wow.
Yes.
Podcast world. I don't
Wow.
think I've mentioned it on the podcast yet.
Oh yeah. I don't think
Oh,
so.
So no,
breaking news.
You're
I planned
good.
on breaking the news today, man.
It's
No, I
Facebook
mean most people
official.
listening would probably would probably already know anyway because they probably know me on social media or whatever.
Right.
That's
So,
awesome.
but yeah, we're
Awesome.
expecting our third in sometime in April.
Yes.
Third.
Pretty
Hopefully,
crazy.
I'll tell
hopefully a
you.
little girl. That's what we're hoping
Yeah.
for. But we'll be happy
Well,
either way.
I have 3 girls. So I'll tell you
Yes.
that third one, man, it is a wild time. Let me just tell
Yeah.
you, it changes everything. Because now you guys got to, if you don't have a minivan, now you guys got to get one.
Oh yeah,
You
there
know,
you go. We'll
now you
have to
have to.
expand. Yeah.
Hey man,
Yeah.
I love the minivan. It's so practical. I don't care. I don't even care. People say
Oh
that
yeah.
like, I'd rather have an SUV or whatever. It's like, man, no way, dude. Those things you can get like a minivan totally loaded for less than
Yeah.
you can a basic SUV stand. So you
Yeah.
get
Yeah.
like DVD players and Blu-ray players, and like ours has got 2 screens in it, so they can watch 2 different things at the same time on road
That's
trips.
awesome.
And oh
Yeah.
yeah, automatic doors that open, and you don't have to worry about your kid opening up the door and hitting the car next door to it. Like that
Yeah,
stuff
yeah,
is
yeah.
like
Little things that are keep your mind
they're
sane.
great on gas. They're awesome on gas. What is the price of gas right now for you guys down there?
We're like at what is it?
It's like
320.
315 down the
Yeah.
street. There's a couple places where it's lower.
Yeah, it's crazy how fast it went up.
Yeah.
It's like
Yeah.
350. It's like 350 here, and I saw it as high as 360 this
Wow.
weekend.
360.
Yeah.
Wow.
Dang.
hmm
Yeah.
Yeah, and we have
That's nuts.
so I did a wedding this weekend. I officiated a wedding this weekend down in near Olean, New York,
Mhm.
down in the foothills. The foothills is what they call it. It's
No.
it feels like a mountain. I mean, they're just giant
Yeah.
hills all over the place. But I went down there and I was in Olean before the rehearsal, and I'm like, I need gas, and I saw 360. I said, that's crazy. So not too far. It's like a 10 or 15-minute drive to the it's the Seneca Nation. So it's a
Mhm.
reservation for
Yeah.
indigenous people, and
Uh-huh.
they have cheaper gas. So I got it for
Wow.
305, 305,
Wow.
Wow.
and that's
Dang.
still wicked high for like
Yeah,
It's
it's stupid,
still,
but it's a
yeah.
big difference.
big
Yeah.
difference. And
Big
I
difference.
was
Yeah,
glad that I took.
I'll drive a few minutes to just get a little bit of a cheaper
Yeah,
price.
I used to. If the thing I started thinking about was like if it's a difference between if it's like a 10 or 15 cent difference, it just
hmm
feels better. But when you really
right.
think about it, like it's only
Mm.
about an extra dollar 50. Like you know what I mean? Like so to drive an extra like 5 miles to get that gas, like you're probably about breaking even. So
Right.
you know what I
Yeah.
mean?
I
But
would
it
see.
feels
Yeah.
better.
It does feel better.
hmm
You feel like once you get above $3, it just feels like it's a different ball game. I guess it's always like that, right?
That
Like
Yeah.
and groceries have gone up too. Like, I just can't believe how expensive things are getting. It's definitely difficult.
dude,
Like,
a year
Yeah.
ago, gas was like under $2,
wow, wow.
right? I mean,
Yeah, we
Yeah,
it was during the
well during
pandemic
the
when you couldn't go
beginning of
anywhere
it. Yeah.
anyway.
yeah.
So it was like
I
saved
was.
tons of money on gas.
Yeah,
Yeah.
exactly. Yeah,
Yeah, I mean
yeah.
really you didn't have
It's
to
a
go
weird
anywhere.
time we're in for sure. It's a weird time.
Yeah.
Actually, I was going to tell you, my wife, she got COVID a few weeks ago. So
Wow.
Oh wow,
3 weeks
that
ago,
recent.
I think it was. Yeah, so she was vaccinated too. So she had a, I guess they call it a breakthrough case or whatever. And she's a teacher here in
Mhm.
New York. And
Mhm.
she had, she was feeling like it was like a for her, I know it's different for everybody, but for her, it was a bad cold. It was a bad cold, and
Yeah.
she, because of her job, you can't go back to work unless you get tested. So when
Right.
she did miss the day of school, she said, "Fine, I'm just gonna go get tested and find out, just so I can get back to work
Right.
in a couple days." She didn't think it was anything, and then she tested positive. The problem
Mm.
is, see, now as I'm also vaccinated, I don't, and again, I don't care if anybody is or not. I'm not preaching that at all,
Right.
but
Right.
I don't, and I know that's touchy, but as
Yeah.
me, I didn't have to quarantine, but my
Mhm.
children did, and my
Right.
children had to be isolated from my wife. So I
It's
had to
hard.
literally, oh, it was brutal. So I had to literally watch the all three of my kids at home for 10 days while Jess was in isolation. And that means like every meal,
Dang.
putting the kids to bed all by myself. And I'm also, getting food for Jess or whatever she needs.
Yeah.
I put like a TV tray outside of her room. I'd put the stuff there, knock on the door and leave. And it was just like,
Did she
honestly, it
feel
was
like a
it was
leper?
oh, totally,
Yeah,
totally.
because
But
you
we
have
we
to.
just, if the kids were with her, and I'm not scared of my kids getting, I could care less, but they'll be fine.
I could
But
care less.
I mean, I don't want them to be sick, but at the same time, I'm not fearful of that. I
Right.
just
Yeah.
didn't like, if they were around her and if they did get it, that's going to extend our quarantine for
Yeah.
another, like, with the kids, it would be,
Right.
I think it's 10 days again. So I was like, man, I can't do that. So I'm just going to tough it out. And it was, I mean, I swear I was toughing that thing out. That was,
I'm about to
that was
lose
so
it.
challenging. Yeah.
Yeah.
Like we try to limit their screen time. Not during those 10 days, man. If you
No.
want to be on your
Just do
iPad,
whatever
go.
you want. Leave me
Yeah.
alone.
I mean, it's just
Yeah.
you you do your best to parent your children to the best of your ability, but there
Mhm.
are times where it's like you gotta give yourself a certain allowance to be like, okay, bad parenting moment, and
Yo,
I'm gonna own it,
Mhm.
and I don't care right now. I don't
Yeah.
care. Like, go
that
Yep.
do this. Take the
There
tablet,
was
go sit
a
down, be quiet,
yep.
stay
Mhm.
out of my face. Right now.
bad
Play
parenting's underrated, man.
Roblox.
Yeah,
Yeah, no kidding. Well, I did have one time where it was beautiful outside, and I'm like, I did what my parents did. And I think more parents should do is
take
you
them
take
out of
them
the house.
outside and you lock the door and you just say,
Yep,
go do
yep,
stuff. Like you ever watch
yep.
the Sandlot? In the Sandlot, the mom is telling the boy there
Yeah, go
is
get in
telling him
trouble.
like,
Yeah.
yeah, get into trouble,
Go
scrape
make
your knees,
friends.
go,
Go
yeah,
see the neighbor.
exactly. Well, we don't really have any neighbors, but you
Neither
can,
do
I
we.
Yeah,
mean,
we do.
my the closest house to me is like 3/4 of a mile down the road, so
Wow.
it's
Wow.
yeah. So I mean, well, the closest directly next to me, so I don't really see houses when I look out my windows. But if I
Yeah, yeah,
look
yeah.
like the front of my house, there's a guy across the street from me. Actually, it's my ex uncle, which is weird. He was married to my aunt,
Interesting.
and yeah, and he's awesome though. I love that guy. He plows my driveway. He is such a great neighbor. And I don't know
Yeah.
if he plows my driveway because he's always done that for whoever's lived in this house, or
Uh-huh.
if he does it because he's technically my uncle. I don't know, but I love him. I
He
love
just
that
feels
guy. He's
feels the love.
Polish, just like me. Yeah, he's
Yeah.
Polish. He's got a weird last name, Wotazik, and it's got some Z's and C's and K's
Wow.
and a J, and yeah, I
That's
think they
Yeah.
cool.
say it Wojtazik,
Interesting.
Wojtazik. But yeah,
Yeah.
but anyway, that whole time, those 10 days there, that was like, I love my kids. I'm sure you guys like we love our children, but boy,
Yeah.
I was ready. I was just ready to get out of the house and go sit in the
Yeah,
woods by
I'm
myself
sure.
and
Yeah.
cry.
You're like, I need some adult
And cry.
quiet time.
I just need to go and
Hmm.
cry somewhere.
It's adult
Gotta
quiet
cry
time.
it
You're so
out.
emo, Josh Whippy.
You needed to do. Have you
Shows.
seen that movie Hot Rod?
Oh yeah, I love Hot Rod.
Did
It's
you
one of
need
my
it
favorite
to
movies.
do some time like that? Go to the woods and just like
Oh
dance it off,
yeah, what
Punch
does he
dance out
say?
your
punch
rage.
down
What does he
out your
say?
rage, just like that.
Yeah,
It's like you're
when I
trying to
was
think
yeah,
about it. It's like
and I
from
fell down
Footloose,
a
when he like gets really mad about getting a ticket for the loud music and everything, and he goes and like dances it off. It's hilarious.
when I was punch
It's the
dancing
best
my
thing.
out my
It
It's my
rage or
favorite thing in
whatever.
life.
is
I
the best.
showed that to one of my
It's
good
funny.
friends, John Lonneville. I showed him that movie for the first time. He had never seen it, and I don't know if you know John. He's a great guy, but he was like literally laughing so hard. I thought he was gonna like pee his pants. At that
Yeah.
scene specifically. It's just I love
Yeah,
when that stuff happens.
yeah.
Yo,
We
check
laugh
this out.
hysterically when we watch it.
We watched it. I hadn't seen it in
Recently,
years, but we
yeah.
just watched it right before Furnace Fest. So, because like my friend from New Jersey came down and was with us for a couple days before we went up to Birmingham, and we watched it because we used to
We used to
watch that
watch
movie
it. Yeah,
together like
Yeah,
all the
that's
time,
cool.
yeah.
and yeah, it was good. It was good good reminiscing, and yeah, I hadn't seen it in forever. We died. It was so good.
It was hilarious.
That's
Yeah, and then
cool.
funny part is that one of the characters has the same name that I do, so we'll randomly, he'll be like, "Babe,
Whoa, Denise.
whoa, Denise." Like, so it's really like my kids are like, "What are you guys talking about?" Like, it's like, don't
Yeah,
worry about it.
exactly.
Inside joke.
That's great.
Yeah.
But
That's
yeah,
awesome.
I think, I mean, this whole issue of COVID, I think is so. I mean, I work at a pharmacy, so you get
Hmm.
all sides of the spectrum. You get people that have
Hmm.
come in, customers, that talk about like they'd had it, and like there was one person particularly, like he came in, he was talking about it, and he said, I could have died if I hadn't gone to the
Yeah.
hospital, because he was
Yep.
like he couldn't breathe, and even the doctor,
Hmm.
like, he didn't want to go to the hospital because he was like, people are sick there, what are they going to do for me,
Hmm.
like, and he didn't even know he had COVID. He just thought that he was like having like an anxiety attack or something, and that's why he couldn't breathe. um
Oh,
and his
wow.
girlfriend, he drove himself to his girlfriend's house, and his girlfriend's house is like, no, I'm taking you to the hospital right now. So she
Wow.
took him, and when they check him, like his lungs were like in bad shape, like he wasn't getting
Mm,
enough oxygen.
Hmm.
So he spent, I think, about a week or so in the hospital,
mm-hmm.
and he was, thank God, I mean, he was able to come out and everything and be okay.
It's
But he
wild
said,
how it's just crazy how it affects people differently. It's just
yeah,
such a
yeah.
it's so
So
interesting.
he said, he's like, the doctor literally told me that like she saved my life, because he was thinking
Mm,
about going to sleep because how bad
mm-hmm.
he was feeling. And the
Sure.
doctor said, if you had gone to sleep, you would have died on your sleep, because you weren't getting enough
Wow.
oxygen. So you were feeling like
Wow.
you were sleepy, but it wasn't that you were actually sleepy. It was the lack of oxygen that you were receiving. Um, so, like you
Wow.
said, it's just so different how it affects people. Now, he had it, and he was saying, because people come in to get vaccinated there. So you get a lot
Mm-hmm.
of people that are, pro vaccine, and you get people that are against it, or just
Mm-hmm.
different spectrum. So he was like, I'm still not going to get the vaccine, but it was bad.
Mm-hmm.
So I mean,
Yeah.
people
Yeah.
have make their choice, and
Yep.
you have to respect it. I feel
Sure.
like I'm
Well,
not
we
walking in your shoes, so
well, we live in a, our culture is so polarized. Um, and that's sad in my opinion because, and again, I got the vaccine, but I don't care if anybody else chooses not to. Like it doesn't bother
mhm,
me that somebody decided and made, their own risk assessment if they can get it or not. What's weird to me is that it's allowing people to be divided.
yeah,
Over something like that. Now I know it's like caused so much havoc in our world, but at the same time, I've never had a flu shot and then been upset or worried that somebody else didn't get a flu shot. So,
right,
Right.
exactly,
there's like
yeah,
Hmm.
there's that to it. So, and I feel like for me, I was telling Duke this a little bit yesterday, I think, but it's like if you read Romans 14, you have you have two sets of Christians that are in two different camps, and Paul is talking to them because there's a group of them that are eating meat, and
hmm,
they're eating meat and they love meat. Now there's another group of them, Christians again, that think that it's wrong to eat the meat because
right.
it was used for sacrifice of other
Hmm.
gods and things
There are
like that.
no
So they
bacon
only
people,
no bacon, no bueno, no bueno.
no bueno.
So there you go. But what I think is the central theme that Paul is saying, he tells the people if you're going to eat meat, eat that steak for the glory of God. If you're going to eat broccoli, do that for the glory of God. Like whatever you do, he said there will be differences, but do not allow those differences to become division. And
Yeah,
I think for Christians, no matter what, if you're listening and no matter what side of the aisle you're on, if you're
yeah,
pro-vax or anti-vax, it's like don't allow that to divide the church.
yeah,
Yeah,
Don't
for
allow
sure.
that to keep you from meeting with other people and being together with other Christians who see things differently than you,
yeah,
because the uniting thing is Jesus. That's the thing that keeps us together. It's not
right,
these small things of like
Hmm.
politics and it's tribalism it
yeah,
in a very very that has nothing to do with
powerful
the
way.
kingdom of
Yeah,
God. Yeah. So
yeah,
I mean, I we and we have we have, I'm sure your churches too. You have some people
hmm,
that are pro and some people are against, and
yeah,
in my opinion, uh, I'm just trying to love God and love my neighbor, no matter what side of the aisle they're on. Uh, and especially if they're Christians, there's absolutely nothing that should cause me to treat them any differently just based off
yeah,
something like that.
Yeah,
So
man,
yeah,
for sure. For sure.
it's a weird world.
Uh, yeah, it's nuts. That's a really good analogy too from Romans 14. And that's a really good perspective. And like no matter
yeah.
what we're talking about, whether this is the big issue of
Of
this past
tonight,
year,
yeah,
like it's
today,
the
yeah,
big issue right now. But like
Hmm.
whatever it is that we're talking about, it always comes back to the same thing. As Christians, like we've got to think we have to be kingdom minded, which means that we have to
Sure.
put um people's needs we have to value and esteem others more highly than ourselves, because
Hmm.
that's what Jesus did. That's what Philippians chapter 2 tells us. We don't have to agree with everybody. We can voice our opinions, especially, I know some people are speaking out on both sides with like
right,
really strong voices because they feel really strongly there. And and
Mm-hmm.
there are some people that are out there, virtue signaling and doing just different things just for the sake of like being
Mm-hmm.
part of that camp, or
That
just for the sake
conversation.
of
Yeah.
creating controversy, or just for the sake of whatever. But the average person is
Mm-hmm.
not like that. Like
Yeah.
the average
Right.
person, even if they're very, very strong one way or the other, they're coming
Mm-hmm.
at it that way because it's what they really think. And
Mhm.
they're doing it, and they want to, both people on both sides, whether you're pro, anti, whatever, like you all want the same things. Like
Yeah.
you want to be safe. You want
Mhm.
your neighbors to be safe. You
I'm
want your kids to
protective.
be
Yeah.
safe. You want your family to be safe. So either
Mm-hmm.
way, there's a
Mm-hmm.
cry there. And I think the biggest mistake that we've made, and we've made this mistake over and over and over again on so
Mm-hmm.
many different issues, and I'm talking about like the church, like
Right.
like the people of
Mm-hmm.
God in general. um we don't have any control over the way the world responds to stuff, but
Mhm.
we
But
should be
we,
Sure.
responding
yeah.
as God's people. We should, if we know him, we should be able to respond to an extent from a kingdom mindset. And
Mm-hmm.
when we degrade the person, when we degrade the individual, when we put them down because they have a belief system or an ideology that's different than ours, no matter what it is that we're talking about, we're wrong.
Yeah.
We're
And
coming at it,
Mm-hmm.
we're attacking it from the wrong perspective, and
we're
that's
misrepresenting God. We're
yeah,
misrepresenting the
that's good.
gospel.
Mm-hmm.
You know,
Mm-hmm.
because
It's so much of it is
you
fear driven too.
yeah, I mean you have to be spirit led. I believe this. I believe that you have to be spirit led. You have to hear
Mm-hmm.
God, and it's a conglomerate of things. Even the word tells us, you have to put precept over precept. It's not this
Mm-hmm.
one thing and that's it. No, you have to look
Yep.
at different things, and out of those different things, make it a led spirit decision. Be led of the
Mm-hmm.
spirit, because like you said, each person is different. Your life, your assignment is different. So to try to do like a one size fit all answer for every
Mm-hmm.
single
Mm-hmm.
person is not right
Mm-hmm.
either. So
Right.
we each have to be led of the spirit, and put that as a priority. And because
Mm-hmm.
that's the only way that we can represent compassion. That's the only way that we'll be able to answer with compassion, with caring for your fellow neighbor, and without becoming like imposing your belief on people.
Mm-hmm.
I mean,
Mm-hmm.
through the gospels, you never see Jesus do that. You never see
No.
Jesus come from an
Mm-hmm.
approach of like an authoritism. Is that the word?
Like authoritarian.
Yeah, authoritarian. There you go. He's never like, this is it, and you do this or you
Yeah.
die. Like, and I think sometimes we can become so passionate about something that our passion drives us to
Mm-hmm.
to try to tell people like, well, you're either with me or you're against me. But when we really look at the example that Jesus set for us, he never said that. He never
Right.
treated people that way. He always approached
Yeah.
people through compassion and love.
Mm-hmm.
And I think that his compassion and his love is what made people that maybe had put up walls and maybe had a predetermined filter or set of view of the world,
Mm-hmm.
to lower that barrier and that defense mechanism, and were able to hear his words, and their
Mm-hmm.
hearts was touched by that compassion, and that's what
Yeah.
brought change to their heart.
Mm-hmm.
So we can't just say, like, well, these are the principles and that's it. You have to tame the word of God with the love of God,
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
or else
You
it's
said
just stipulations or rules that you're trying to make somebody fit.
you said something. You said two things that um, I want to talk about. I think were awesome. The first thing you said was that we have to follow the Spirit. We have to follow the Holy Spirit and do what He's asking us to do. I think
Mhm.
it brings up I had a woman in my church who is a teacher. She called me and was just asking me as a pastor. She as a teacher, and I'm in New York State, Buffalo Bills, the only national football team,
Only. Okay.
the only football
That
team
matters.
of the NFL in New York State. Anyway,
Oh, okay.
So she, we're in New
Oh,
York
In
State.
New
I
So
York
see what you're
State. Yeah,
saying.
I see. I
All right.
yeah,
see.
That felt like a personal
we
I
attack.
know. No.
no,
Um,
no,
He's
no.
talking about
The
the Houston
Giants.
Giants over
I'm
here.
sorry.
you just triggered me, Joshua B.
Sorry.
But I mean, I'm from
The
New Jersey,
Giants
so I
are.
mean, they play in New
Yeah,
Jersey. I'm there. Like, I'm cool. I'm cool.
they're not
We'll
in New
take.
York. They should be the New Jersey Giants. Like, get out of
They
here.
should
But then
be.
it
So,
wouldn't
I
sound
would
right.
100% support that. I would give. I would. I would sell all of my Dogecoin to support that cause right now.
Sell your RTOs and
It's not a
oh,
whole lot.
that's it. Yeah,
It's not a whole lot.
I had
But
a lot. And I don't anymore.
I'd sell all of my Shiba Inu
Shiba.
coins to
Do you
support
have
that
Shiba?
cause.
You got some Shiba?
He's got some
I do have
Shiba.
a small quantity of Shiba.
He keeps looking at it.
It's
You could be
actually
like,
it's gone up like 300% in the
It
past
did.
2 weeks. So
wow. You could be like Alex Seidler and go on a awesome vacation because of the money you made in crypto.
is that what
Oh,
That'd
he's
be
there
pretty
we
doing?
cool.
go.
I was gonna ask you because he
Well,
Yeah.
hasn't answered any of my.
We've
Well, I
we
haven't
made
called
a
him,
little
but he hasn't
bit.
responded
We've
to my
made a little
messages.
bit. A little bit of.
And every
I don't
time I
know.
see him
I
post a
never know
video,
if he's
he's like
telling the
in
truth.
another state somewhere, like riding a
Well,
bike, or his
well,
wife's
that's
riding a
also
bike.
part of you know.
I'm like, dude, have you been
I don't
gone for
know if,
months?
yeah,
I feel like he's
dude,
been
he's on
gone
vacations
forever.
all the time.
That's one of the perks
Must
of
be nice.
having the kind of ministry they have too. You know what I mean? Like
Mm,
they're
yeah.
able to,
It's
they're
awesome.
Travel.
impacting
It's
others
very
to go
awesome.
out to
I'm
the
just jealous.
nations. So they have to travel. I mean, if you want people to go to the nations, you have to travel too. You have to set the tone
Yeah.
for people to go out to and everything. So,
Yeah.
but hey, yeah, if
So
they're
anyway, I was
making,
saying, so Jess is, so we're in New York State, so there's things strict, and this lady in my church, because my wife's a teacher too, but this
yeah,
lady in my church was like, hey, I feel like, I don't know what to do. Should I get vaccinated? Like, should I not get vaccinated? And I said, that's not the question. And she was like, what do you mean? I said, well, the question is, what is God calling you to? What is God calling you to? Because both,
mhm,
no matter what He's calling you to, you're going to have to exercise faith in following
yeah,
Him. And I
yeah,
said, so
Well,
for example, let's say God is calling you to be a stay-at-home mom and stay with your children and be at home and doing that kind of thing. Like if God's calling you to that, because he
hmm,
could be. And if he is, if that's where he's leading you to, you have to trust God with your finances. You
yeah,
have to. You have to trust that he's going to meet him because you're leaving a full-time job as a
exactly,
teacher in New York State, and you are now trusting God that he's going to do that. Now, on the flip side, if God's calling you to be a teacher, if he's calling you to be a teacher in the public school system,
yeah,
then you have to trust God with the same amount of trust, if he called you to something else with the vaccine. So you have to trust God with your health now because you're doing what God has called you to do. And I think a
exactly,
great example of this is when we see missionaries that travel all over the world.
yep,
And when they travel to different countries, sometimes you have to get some really nasty shots. But
yep,
they're in faith saying, I'm going to get this yellow fever shot. I've heard that one's terrible. But
mhm.
you're
yep,
doing that in faith because you know that you're called to do X, Y, and Z, to go wherever.
yeah,
So it's no different for us because we're on mission. God has something for us to do. He wants us to do things. Now, it could be to stay at home, it could be to change careers, but we have to be led by the Spirit, not
yeah,
by our flesh. And I think right now, that is so common in our world is being led by the flesh as Christians. And it's like, you're operating out of the wrong spirit here. We have to
exactly.
be
Well,
led by the Lord.
Yeah, you can let
So,
fear take over. You can
mhm,
let the media define your
mhm,
decisions or your even your own opinion because sometimes we can have the wrong opinion, you know. But
yeah,
when we listen to the Holy Spirit, when we seek Him, He will find us. You know, I mean, the Word
mhm,
says like, "Knock and it shall be open; seek and
mhm,
it shall be found." Like
mhm,
he doesn't put that in the word just like, oh, it sounds great and it sounds amazing. Like, no, it's reminding you like when you are in need, you can do this because you'll get the answer. I think sometimes we think that to find the answer or to receive direction and instruction from God, that it's like a really difficult thing, that it's like, I have to spend all this time praying or
mm,
fasting and doing all this in order to get this one answer. And if we actually simplify it, I think if we this is gonna sound maybe not very spiritual, but if we actually relax and listen, we would actually get there quicker,
Yeah.
because I think
Yeah.
we sometimes either over spiritualize it and think that like I have to like be in this specific state of mind or the spirit in order to hear. But to hear is actually really simple, and sometimes God's responds in the simplest ways because he
Hmm.
knows how to speak to us. Sometimes I think we don't, we act like he doesn't know how to talk to us, or he's gonna talk
Hmm.
to us like
Hmm.
thus said the Lord, da 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 da. Like God's not stuffy. So it's our ears cannot be tickled by the world, by our own opinion, by our own
Hmm.
culture. Sometimes we
Hmm.
have predispositions and we don't
Sure.
even see those predispositions. So I was talking to this lady in Mexico, and I was giving her some counseling, and she said something to me that she's like, yeah, like when your kids, they're little, you have to do this. And she was talking about boys. And I was like, wait, hold up. Like that belief, like I've never heard that in my house. Like we never did it in my house. She's like, yeah, like every single member of my family has done this.
Hmm.
And I was
Hmm.
like, wait, okay, hold up. Then you have to recognize like just because my great grandmama did it, my mama did
Hmm.
it. Sometimes we have traditions or things that we carry on that we don't even know why,
Yeah.
but they're there.
It's
And
like
we,
have you ever seen the ham or heard that ham analogy? So there
yeah,
was like
Yeah,
I like
cutting
the
the
like
ends
tractor
off.
store.
why are you cutting off the edge? I don't know. My mom did it, and her
Yeah,
mom did it. Her mom, well, they did it so they could get it in the pan.
yeah,
That's why they cut it off so it could fit in the pan. And they didn't know why. They just did it
We've
yeah,
because. Yeah,
wasted
no, that's a
lots of
good.
ham
That's
over the years, over the centuries, or the
a
generations.
a
A lot of
lot of ham
unnecessary
got
ham
wasted.
went to waste.
yeah,
But
yeah.
they
So
didn't know
I mean,
why. I
it's
think that.
Well,
But that kind of leads into the other thing you were saying was about that compassion. Compassion is the word that you used earlier for other people and how they see things and where they're coming from, their background, that kind of stuff. And I was just the other day, there was a difficult person that was, um, I wouldn't say attacking me, but I guess somebody could look at it that way. And
mhm,
I just felt like the Holy Spirit just kind of hit on me, like revealed to me their brokenness,
mhm,
like revealed to me. And when that was revealed, and I could see not the offenses that they were giving me, but instead where are they coming from? Why are they saying what they're saying? I was filled with compassion for them.
mm,
And
yeah,
that allowed
yeah,
me to not be offended. That allowed me to, you know, basically minister to this person that was attacking me and not have to worry
yeah,
about my ego or whatever. Like I didn't, it was this is a broken person. And when I feel like that compassion is lost, um for other people, I heard somebody the other day was he's like a probably a famous, I don't know if he's a famous preacher, I guess he's on TV and stuff, but the way he was talking about people who are Democrats or whatever, it was so hurtful and so mean
yeah,
spirited. I'm like, where's the compassion?
yep,
Because you were saying, Denise, like Jesus was filled with compassion. Like the way he
yeah,
spoke to people was, he was, I think of the woman caught in adultery, or the woman at the well, like,
yeah,
even tax collectors, like the way that he, these people that the religious looked at as, the lowest of lows, he's filled with compassion. Even that doesn't mean that everything was right. That doesn't
yeah,
mean what they were doing was good, but he was filled with compassion, and that allowed him to minister. And I just wonder, is that where revival, if we're looking
mhm,
for revival in our lives, to happen on earth, I think it needs to start with compassion and
wow,
definitely,
having
most definitely.
the eyes of Jesus for people rather than
yeah.
ourselves, than our tribe or wherever, we're from.
Well, for sure, incredible things happen when we get into unity with one another,
Mhm,
and really destructive things happen when we're divided.
yeah,
And
Hmm.
so it's such a scheme of the enemy. Like he'll use whatever, whatever to get us divided and to get us fighting against each other. And as you mentioned, like tribalism or tribalistic, we become tribalistic like that, and we're putting people into different categories based on this or that. Like,
Hmm.
bro, one of the things that drove me crazy, uh, when was it? I guess no, back in November, was like, so I saw so many Christians saying leading up to the elections, um, you cannot be a Christian if you vote this way,
Right.
like,
Hmm.
and things like that, and just
Yeah.
blanket statements like that. But then on the other
Hmm.
side, it was, if you vote this way, you're a racist, and then so you're just like
Hmm.
in this category, you're in one of two categories, and it's like, well, no, um,
It doesn't work that way.
yeah, and
Yeah.
so I get it. Like I get the issues that everybody discusses. I get that abortion is a huge deal. Like I
Hmm.
I I get
Hmm.
it. But either way, like whether I agree with your political stance, your political affiliation, if I agree with this or that, like for me to use something that's a value for me to then put it on somebody else who doesn't see eye to eye, and for that to become something, I just think we use things as like smoke screens
Yeah.
so many
Hmm.
times to justify our anger toward a certain kind of person, to justify whatever it is, the way that we treat people negatively, and we can put a virtuous sounding title on it. We can call it righteous indignation. We can call it whatever, like I'm partnering with God and this is what it looks like. Like we can put all these different things on it. But at the end of the day, like you said, if we lose that compassion, I think that losing your compassion, like the automatic next thing that happens is you fall out of unity. I don't, those things can't
Can
coexist,
go
right? Like
exist together.
there
Yeah.
has to be compassion for one another if we're going to be united together. And
Right.
I think it's important to understand too what real like what unity really means, because I think people sometimes also
yeah, that's a good
think that
point.
unity is me agreeing with you all the time. That means that I
Hmm.
have I'm walking in harmony and in unity with you. No, I can walk in
Hmm.
harmony with you and in unity and still disagree or have a different opinion that you have. But that doesn't deter our relationship. That doesn't make me treat you in a different way or love you less or anything. No. And I
Yeah.
think that that's a big misunderstanding that we have. We think
Hmm.
unity means like you're all 100% with me, you think the same way, you feel the same way, you like these are our colors. And that's,
Hmm.
I think that leads more to segregation and division than
Yes.
anything else, because God
Hmm.
gave each person, an assignment. Each of us are different. God loves diversity. Otherwise, we will all look the same. We'll all sound the same. I mean, let's
Hmm.
just even think about that. I mean, God is creative. He's infinite.
Hmm.
So he gives us the ability to think and process information and create different things that might look different, and they're all in a
Yeah.
way beautiful, and they have a place of its own. But to not recognize that and to say that unity has to be unison or like all the same, it's also inaccurate,
Mm.
Right.
because
Well,
that's
it
not
goes back
unity.
to Romans 14.
Yeah.
Really does. I mean, think about that. That you got two people, two different groups of people who are so strongly one way.
Yep.
And what the other person is doing is offending the other. It's like it's
Yeah.
so similar
Hmm.
to where we're at today. And Paul, obviously, I mean, not much has changed in our world. I mean,
Right.
that's 2,000 years ago, and we're still there. We're still the human condition.
Yep.
Fount Schultz always says something to me when I call him and I'm telling him stuff. He's like, Josh, you have to control the beast. That's what he
Yeah.
says to me all the time. And the beast is me, because our
Yep.
human condition is
Exactly.
to be fleshy, to
Mm.
be to think of this world as a flesh and blood fight, when scripture
Mm.
tells us the fight is
Yep.
not against flesh and blood. And
Exactly.
it's like, I almost feel like if I get any tattoo, I want to get that tattoo to remind me, maybe put it on my forehead. This fight is not against the flesh and
Yep.
blood. Like,
Yeah.
stop looking
Yeah.
at, I had a shower thought the other day, and I posted it on Facebook, And I don't know. I always get in trouble whenever I post stuff. People attack me for whatever reason. But here's the
Yeah,
It's
thought.
fun.
it's
It's
Sometimes
like
fun.
sometimes it's fun.
I said, as for the Christian, it's not us versus them.
Yeah,
It should be us loving them. And
yeah.
that is way harder to do than fight.
Oh
Way
yeah,
Well,
harder
here's
to
the
do.
definitely.
thing. Here's the thing. To your point, if you even if you feel so strongly about one side or the other, like if you feel so strongly about it and you just know that you are absolutely right, still the way to get people over to your side is not to tear down the other side. Like that's never worked. It
Right.
just creates more
Never.
tribalism. It just perpetuates the struggle and whatever. So if you just know 100% you are absolutely right, yours is the correct stance, then like more than anybody else, you should be treating the other people with compassion and love so that you can have dialogue and conversations so that they can see your point of view and come over to your side. You know what I mean?
Hmm.
Like that's
Hmm.
how we don't win people by for any in any area of life. We don't get people to agree with us by condemning them or by, threatening them or by telling them, whatever it is. Like we don't that's not how we get people on board with us. That
Hmm.
just for the average person, some people might come under some kind of like feeling because of that and be like, "Oh, well maybe I'm wrong," and whatever. But that the average person will fight fire with fire, so to
Right.
speak, and just keep pushing it back further because again, like you said, if our fight's against flesh and blood, then we're just going to keep pushing that thing further. But if we recognize that my battle is not with the person in front of me, it's not with flesh and blood, it's against the spirit of the age, it's against the spirit that's behind that wrong belief system or whatever it is. And so
Hmm.
the way for me to get through that is to not move in that negative spirit. The way for me to get through to that is to show love and to show compassion and to be Christ-like, in however that looks in the situation. You know what I mean? But it's not it's not fighting against people to try to get people to agree with you. Like if you think about it, that
Yeah.
like that doesn't even make sense.
Yeah,
I want
Yeah.
you to agree with me, so I'm gonna yell at you for 30
yeah.
minutes.
I mean, that just creates
Well,
arguments. That just creates
yeah.
argument and fight. And as you guys were talking, I was reminded of what Second Corinthians 10:5 says. Which specifically uses the word argument. you know
Mm.
Yeah.
that it says, casting down arguments and every high thing that exalts itself against the knowledge of
Mm.
God,
Denise,
bringing every thought into captivity into the
why do you
obedience
gotta
of
bring the
God.
Bible into this? Come on.
Because this is important. I mean, we are not called to cause and create arguments for the sake of just creating arguments.
Yeah.
We're actually to bring arguments into the knowledge of God. We are to bring them
Mm.
captive, because all those arguments, without us realizing, are being used by the enemy to exalt themselves and whatever thing they're promoting over the knowledge of Christ.
Yeah.
And that is not what we're supposed to do.
Hmm.
You
Yeah,
know?
actually,
Mhm.
there's all these talks of mandates, and everybody's mad about mandates. I get it.
Yeah.
But let's remember what the mandate is that Jesus gave us.
Right.
When they
What?
asked him, they're like, "What is the most important thing?" He's
Right.
to love God with all of your heart and to love your
Love your
neighbor as
neighbor.
yourself. And it's like,
Exactly.
hold on a second.
The royal law.
That is a mandate. That is a mandate that you must do
Yeah.
if you're a Christian. And remember, Christian, and when it was that term, because it was the way, and then they started calling them
Yeah.
Christians. It meant little Christs,
Yeah.
little
Yep.
Christs. And
Yep.
when I see Jesus, there's a lot of talk, and this probably get me in a ton of trouble, and people get mad at me. But I understand rights. I get it. And I
Yeah.
think God gives us rights as well. However, I do find it interesting that Jesus, God in the flesh, laid down everything he had, including his rights
Yeah.
and his deity for us.
Yeah.
He laid
Mhm.
that down. He said that, it says that even though he was fully God, he did not consider that something to hold on to.
Mhm.
Yeah.
He let go of things. He sacrificed himself for us. And if we're called to love God and love people, then it makes so much sense. But at the same time, it explains why there's so much turmoil here in the Western Church. It
Yeah.
is it's something that we've lost sight of, the mandate that God has given us. It's not you, oh,
Wow.
maybe I can do it. And then, they continue to ask, like, well, who is my neighbor? It's like the human condition, the beast in us is trying to get out of that mandate. We don't want to do that mandate. We don't like being told what to do. But as a
Yeah.
Christian, that is a necessity. It's a mandate. Have to do it.
Wow.
Yeah. And that also speaks about your love walk. That also speaks
Yeah.
about like what is actually in you, because it's a lot of sometimes a lot easier to say, "Oh, I stand for this and I stand for this," than have
Hmm.
to evaluate, wait, are my beliefs and my stance actually an expression of the love that I have for
Right.
God and that I'm meant to have for others or not?
Hmm.
Mm.
And that's a hard cookie to swallow sometimes, because that means that you know I have to put myself in a position like David did and say, Lord, search my heart and
Yeah.
see if
I was
there's
thinking of
anything
that.
in me
Yeah.
that goes against you.
Yeah.
Because
Absolutely.
like you say, I mean, we are flesh and bone. We are our carnality, our natural humanistic mindset is
Hmm.
going to tell us self-preserved, do this, do that. But
Hmm.
when you
Yeah.
look at that compared to the kingdom of God, you realize like, hey, this is
Hmm.
not this is not right.
Hmm.
So I think there's two things that are happening right now in history. I think that God is calling his sons and daughters to live up to the standard,
Hmm.
to evaluate like,
Hmm.
okay, where are you? Where are you? Do
Yeah.
you have religion or do you actually have relationship? And it's
Hmm.
also raising
Yeah.
the question, do you know God?
Yeah.
Because I can speak about God and I can, recitate the Bible, or I don't know if that's the right word. I'm sorry. I can,
You
recite.
not resuscitate, because that'd be like the Bible
Resusc-
died
No,
and you had to bring it back to life.
no,
Um,
I can quote scripture to
recite.
you
Yeah.
left and right. But if I actually don't know how to rightfully divide the word of God, I could easily
Hmm.
use it as a weapon against you. And I could
Right.
easily, instead of give you the right information and the right interpretation, lead you away from God.
Hmm.
So
There was
as
something you
believers,
said that,
we need to have that balance.
well, there's something, and I'm a fixer. I like to fix, like, if there's a problem, I want to know, like,
Yeah.
I don't want it just to go away. I want to know what the problem
No.
is, right? And
Right.
sometimes that gets me in trouble too. But if that's the issue, right? If, like, we're talking about, like you were saying, like, where are you? And I'm like trying to think, like, why do we act this way? And I was
Mm-hmm.
reminded of that song, Build My Life, right? And the
Hmm.
bridge of that song says, I will build my life upon your love. It is a firm foundation. And then
Mm-hmm.
it says later that I will not be shaken. So the
Mm-hmm.
question is, if we're shook, right? If it, like, to me, it's what is the foundation of your life built
Mm-hmm.
on? What are you built
Hmm.
on? If it's built on his love, that's going to naturally come out. That compassion's naturally going to come out. You're going to, because that's your foundation. That's what you're
Yeah.
built
Yeah.
on. That's a
Yeah.
natural outflow of it, because that's where your identity comes from. That's where your sense of well-being comes from. It comes from God. It comes from Jesus and his love.
Yeah.
But what I think now is what we're seeing is kind of what you're describing is we're seeing it's very easy for us as Christians to put our foundation in things that are not of God. And
For
then
sure.
we're shook. And we're like,
Yeah.
why am I shaken? Why am I shook? Why is this all bothering me? Because the foundation of our lives needs to be built on the love of God. So that's where it all
Wow.
comes from. First John says, John says in First John, he says that God is love. Like, those who don't have
Mm-hmm.
love
Yeah.
don't know God, because
Yeah.
God is love. Now, that's not just a descriptive word about God, that's actually the very nature
Of who he
of who
is.
he is. Like,
Yep.
Mm.
he is the source, he is the originator of love. Shouldn't we go to that source to build our foundation? You know what I'm saying? Like,
Hmm.
that's what I
Yeah.
think is the biggest problem, because you have people getting upset about people not being vaccinated, and you got people upset about people being vaccinated, and you got upset about who's president, you got people upset about what's happening in schools. I'm not saying we shouldn't be upset, but it shouldn't shake us. And if it
Yeah.
Right.
shakes us, Now
Right.
we're operating in the flesh, and now we're operating in anger and hurt and pain. Now that shows you that your foundation needs to be uprooted, and you need to put it back into Christ, so that you can be a co-laborer with him. You know what I mean?
Mm.
Yeah.
Sorry, I got
Yeah,
all
like
preachy. I got all
like you
preachy
like
there.
yeah, no, it's really good.
It's good. It's
Like
good.
you've both said, that's why being led by the Spirit just
Yes.
becomes so key, so
Mm,
Yeah.
important. I mean, the Word of God obviously gives us the framework for everything that we need to know, as far as the way that we're supposed to treat people, the way that we're supposed to respond when conflict comes up, when things that are happening to us that we disagree with, and all these kinds of things. The Bible tells us how our mindset is supposed to be, how we're supposed to respond, how we're supposed to treat people. But then, like, for these individual situations, like, there's some unprecedented things happening today in our society. And again, like, um, everybody's got their own opinion and belief system and whatever. But when we need to just, I mean, if you're led by the Spirit in the decision that you make,
mm,
then you're good, right?
You
I
can't
mean,
go
that's all you can
wrong
do.
being
If
led of the
God
Spirit.
is leading you this way, then he's gonna, so like, if God is leading you, let's just say God's leading you not to get the vaccination. Let's say
mhm,
if that's what's happening. So you're being led by the Spirit and you believe God's leading you not to get the vaccine, but your job is going to start mandating that you have to have the vaccine. Like,
Well, God's gonna
I
provide a
mean,
way
then
too to
then
resolve
if
that.
if God's leading you that way,
Yeah.
then, like you pointed to earlier, then you've got to find another job.
Yep.
And
mhm,
God's got to protect you, God's got to provide for you, God's got to take care of you. And so if it's the whatever it is, however you're attacking that situation, um there, like you said, there shouldn't be fear there if the
mhm.
foundation is right. If the foundation is
That's
correct
right.
and our lives are built on the love of God, our lives are built on the foundation of Jesus Christ, then we know that he's with us.
Hmm.
And we
Mhm.
know that he's our provider, and we know that he's faithful, that he's going to see us through. And so, I
Sure.
mean, for some people, I mean, that might look like moving out of the country at some point. Like, you know what I mean? Like, who
Right.
Yeah.
knows? I mean, hopefully, I'm hoping this stuff doesn't go that far,
Yeah.
but who knows what's going to
Mexico's gonna
happen? You
have
know
a
what I
huge
mean? Like,
problem.
yeah,
Mexico, buckle up, Denise. Everybody's gonna be trying to get to
everybody's
Mexico.
coming to Mexico.
Yeah. I mean, it's
That's
I
the
bet.
basement of the United States. We're all going to go hang out in the
Really,
basement.
the basement. That sounds really bad.
The
But it's okay.
basement
I
of
guess
the
we,
United
we
States.
say that things like
It's
that about
America
other
Junior.
countries. No,
No,
but
wait, no,
you
that's
What
know,
is it? What is it like in Mexico? I gotta ask. What is the with all of this kind of stuff that we're dealing with here in the United States? What is it like in Mexico? What are you
I
hearing
mean,
from your
the
family and
climate over
friends?
there is it's tense as well as it is here, and I think it's a lot worse in the sense that people have less access to healthcare than here in
Mm,
America.
mm,
Healthcare is cheaper to certain senses to a certain extent. However, if you are sick and you are in need of a ventilator, you getting that is going to depend
mm,
on the resources that you have. So if you have money, you'll have access to it. If not, then you'll fence for yourself.
yeah,
And it's sad in the sense that, I mean, now here people who have passed away with COVID, like their families have some time to have closure and stuff. In Mexico, you don't get to see your family member.
mm,
That you recognize the body
mm.
and the body gets cremated and that's it. So we have a lot of people that have lost family
a
members
lot.
to
Mm.
COVID who
Really?
are dealing with grief in a
Mm,
exponential way because there was no closure.
mm.
So it's affected the country in many different ways. Um,
In other countries,
it's
man, like, there's
it's
countries where
it's
they
difficult.
do, like, basically mass COVID graves,
Yeah,
essentially,
Wow.
where there's no opportunity to
to
recognize the,
recognize the
like, it's
body.
just, if you die with COVID, like, the response is to just get rid of that body. Um, it's like, when we compare our situation to what some other nations around the world are dealing with, um, we're way better off than a lot of other, nations are.
Yeah, yeah,
Mm,
We
because a
have
lot.
friends that are, like, going to the in Mexico. We have friends that have gone to the doctor because they have, like, a fever, they have a headache, they have a cough, they have stuff like that,
You
which
can't
you
even
might
get
think,
tested.
okay, this might be COVID, so let me go to the doctor. They won't even, we've had friends get turned away because they could still taste their food.
Yeah, my
And they
father.
said, if you can still taste your food, you don't have COVID, go back home.
Yeah, my
It's
father.
like,
Wow.
we know this disease affects people in so many different
Yep.
ways. Like, that's not
Yeah.
the only thing. So, but it's like you said, I mean, I'm sure if it was, you know, a different situation, they were connected
Yeah, if you
to
have
somebody,
money.
like they can go in and they can get a test
Yeah.
whenever they wanted. But
So
it's, you know, yeah, it's different structure.
yeah, so in Mexico we have this saying that probably when I translate it, it's not gonna make any sense in English, but it means when there's money, the dog dances, basically. Okay, so
Yeah, it doesn't
Makes
make any sense. You're right.
it doesn't make any sense in English.
I mean, it doesn't make sense,
When there's
But
but we get what
it's
it means.
basically saying that if there is money, whatever you need, you'll have an access to it. You know, that's what
I
that
see.
expression means, you know,
Mm.
because it doesn't make sense. Anyway, so
I love that. I love that you translated it and you're like, wow, in English that does not make any sense, but it makes
No.
sense in Spanish. That's funny.
Yeah, because it's just an idiomatic expression, so people understand what you're talking about when you say
I
it.
see. I see what
So
you mean. Say it in Spanish.
it's con dinero baila el perro. That's what you say.
It sounds good.
Sounds cool.
good.
Yeah.
It
So
sounds better in Spanish.
Yeah.
yeah, like Duke said, like you have people that maybe are sick and they go to the doctor and they get checked, and the doctor say, well, you know what, just to be safe, go get tested. You know,
Mm.
they're not doing tests there, so they'll just send you to go get tested somewhere, and then you go get tested and they tell you like, well, no, you're not sick enough, or you don't look that bad, so we don't want to waste that test that we would have given you for someone who actually needs it.
Oh,
So
wow.
there's this, I would say, kind of distorted way of looking at the gravity of things. You know, I mean, thank
Right.
God, you know, my dad ended up going to get tested because he was dealing with like a severe cough that he had for I guess more than 10 days. His throat
Mm.
wasn't hurting or anything, but he was just like presenting like a cold, and the doctor just wanted to make sure, because my dad is elderly, so he just wanted to make sure he
Mhm.
didn't have COVID. So
Yeah.
he got turned away, and you know,
Wow.
he had to come back a few times. He went back, you know, kept trying until they finally were like, I guess they probably got tired of it. That they were like, let's give this man a test, you know. Perseverance, you know.
The unrighteous king,
Like
or the unjust
Yeah.
king. Not because of his
Exactly.
compassion, but because of her
Because of his
persistence.
persistence.
Yeah.
That's funny.
So I mean, thank God, you know, he got tested and he didn't have it, but and he was, you know, he was sure that he didn't have it, but at the same time, it's like, why take the risk? I mean,
Yeah.
if there is the option, why take the risk? But there
Mhm.
are countries where like getting tested is expensive. You know, it's only
Yeah.
done in certain places, so you have to meet certain qualifications. Beds in hospitals are in shortage. It's they're just
Hmm.
I think like it affects a lot, and a lot has to do with the social economic system and the how the money is given and allocated. So it's we definitely have to pray for all those countries that are in those situations, you know, because not
Absolutely. No,
everybody has an
it's
option.
well, and sometimes to be fair, you know, it's just I think some people just need to hear, like even me, like I need to hear, you know, we are very blessed in this country, and you know, I give thanks for that.
Yeah,
You know what I mean? It's just sometimes perspective is it's good to
Yeah.
get some perspective. I think you know,
definitely.
do you guys remember Jason Upton? You guys know who that
Hmm.
is?
Yes.
Yes.
He came to Elam once, and when he was there, I don't remember what he was talking about, but the one thing that stuck out was he was talking about having an aerial view.
Hmm.
An aerial view. So what he was saying was, and he may have been singing it, I'm not sure, but what he's saying is
Yeah, he loved
when
to
we're
sing in the
in it,
piano and talk and sing.
yeah, that's right.
I'm up here.
Yeah,
I love
yeah.
it. I love it.
He did. He would say that, and the point was, you know, we're on the ground level, and when you're looking up, you know, and you're in the valley, and you're looking at the mountain, it's hard to get a perspective
Mhm.
of what's beyond that, or
Yeah,
what else is out there,
what's
because to
happening?
us
Yeah.
that's all we see. But God has this like aerial view where he can see all these different things happening. He can see what's going on in different countries. He can see, and I think the perspective to try to see all of this from God's point of view, uh, that's what I'm looking for. I'm looking for God's eyes with people. I'm
Yeah.
looking for God's eyes in my situations, in my country, and my,
Mhm.
wherever I'm at. It's like, God, where are you at in this? And again, I don't want to say, I don't want to poo poo on people that are, passionate about the Constitution, or passionate about
Sure.
law, or passionate like I about health or whatever. I am not saying like don't care about things, but
Yeah.
Yeah.
it is important that it all comes down to priorities, really. Like, what is my priority? And I think first and foremost, my priority needs to be the kingdom of God. And then after that, we have these other concerns, but they're like, we go
Yeah.
back to what we were saying. Let's not allow them to be division. Let's not
Yeah.
allow that to divide us as
Yep.
the people of God, or even further, you know, what is it? Further divide or further put that chasm between us and the lost. It's like I
Yeah.
want to stand firm in what I believe and my convictions, but at the
Yes.
same time, I don't want those beliefs and convictions to keep me from ministering to my neighbor. You know,
Yeah.
Yeah, man.
it's good
Yeah,
stuff.
100%.
That's good stuff. Hey,
Yeah,
I
like
go ahead. Sorry,
that's a big
and
there's
then
a
I gotta ask you a
giant
question.
fly
That was
flying
a
around
big
my room
fly
right
that
now.
just.
Oh my
I
lord.
think that's the one that was
It's
in the
like
window.
like going past my
Yep.
ear.
I think of
That's
that.
funny.
Um it's crazy. No, but
Yeah,
yeah,
I think
like
about
like what you were talking about earlier with love the Lord your God with all your heart, soul, mind, and strength, and love your neighbor as yourself. Like that is
Hmm.
the commandment of Jesus,
Mm-hmm.
that like on that hangs all the law and all the prophets. So everything else finds
Yeah,
its true meaning and its true value within that, right? It's
yeah.
yeah, like I like that you just did that. The like
Cohesive. Yeah.
cohesiveness. What's
Yeah.
is it cohesiveness or
Cohesive.
cohesion? Cohesion. I'm gonna say cohesion.
I
Um,
like it.
but like,
Sound Mexican,
but
huh?
yeah. So okay, so you're you have a very strong stance on you have a very strong stance on abortion.
Playing
Awesome.
cards.
So do
Playing
I.
cards. Make
You
it
have very
playing
strong
cards.
stance on playing cards. You have a very strong stance on health. You have a very strong stance on vaccines are terrible. You have a
The
very
devil.
strong stance on this political affiliation, whatever. Do all of that. Just make sure that you're loving the Lord your God with all your heart, soul, mind, and strength, and you're loving your neighbor as yourself in the process.
Hmm.
Mm-hmm.
And let
That's right.
that thing, let that passion, let that belief, let that value system that you have on the inside of you come to its fullest expression through the lens of I love my
Hmm.
God with all my heart and I love my neighbor as I love myself. And then we
Hmm.
don't go wrong. We don't get, I mean, we'll
Yep.
make mistakes because we're not perfect, you know what I mean? But then we don't end up in I'm in this camp and you're in that camp. No, like
Hmm.
I might be in this camp in terms of what I believe, but that doesn't make you any less than me. And you and I can we can still we can have relationship and we can interact and we can, I can speak into your life and I can allow you to speak into my life, and like we can do all that because it's not about me.
Mm-hmm.
You were talking about rights, like how we just my rights, these are my rights, you're trampling on my rights, like okay, like I'm so glad that we live in a free country. I'm so
Yes.
glad for
Hmm.
freedom. I want people to be
Yeah.
as free as possible. I want people to experience freedom in like it in their country. I want people to experience freedom in God. I want people to experience I just want people to be free. Like
Mm.
more than anything in this whole world, I want people to be free. um but like when my rights become the primary thing in my life that I'm fighting for, don't get me wrong, we shouldn't surrender our rights.
Mm-hmm.
We shouldn't
Hmm.
just sacrifice and be willing, yeah, take them. I think
Right.
we've done
Yeah.
that in terms of privacy, in terms of so many things. We're like, because of convenience, we've allowed things to just kind of like slip through the cracks because we're so, as a society, we're so interested in convenience. So we'll
Mm-hmm.
sacrifice things like privacy for the sake of convenience. I think there's been a lot of that, and whatever. So I'm not saying that you don't fight for your rights. What I'm saying is your primary drive in life, your primary, just
Primary.
making up words, your
Yeah.
primary fight in life should not be for your rights.
Yeah.
If
Hmm.
anything, it should be for fighting for somebody else.
Well,
Um,
don't forget though, we have to fight for our right to party.
we do.
Don't forget that. That's a very vital
That's
part of
so
this.
true.
Uh, but there was something my pastor said the other day that has been like rocking my world. He said a couple weeks ago. He said, You should care about your relationships as much as your opinions.
Yes,
And,
indeed.
I would almost say more than your opinions. But
Mhm.
as much because people got opinions and we hear them all the time, right? Everybody's
Sure.
and I'm sure sharing my opinions now. But my relationships should be on that same thing. Like rather than trying to be right about everything in the world, I don't want to burn those bridges of relationships.
Yeah.
It's
And
just so powerful.
I think it's important to recognize that, I mean, when Jesus gave us that mandate, um, a lot of times we look at things that, Jesus gave us, or instructed us to do, and we don't recognize, or we don't see that there's work that's going to
Yeah.
require in order for us to do that. Sometimes we throw the love card so quickly and so easily, but let's be honest,
Mm,
sometimes it's hard
it
to
is.
love other people sometimes,
Mm.
because you don't understand where they're coming from, because
Mm,
you don't see things their way, because and I think that we have to be willing to put in the work to say,
mm,
hey God, show me. you
yeah.
are the you are the source of love.
Yeah.
So as I love you,
It's
show me how to love them. Show me how to love that person that is difficult to love, because maybe I agree, or I disagree, but that we won't shy away from trying, from recognizing that he's given us the grace to love the unlovable, to love those
yeah.
that don't quite maybe see things in our own in our way.
I think it like in marriage, you have these you have this like we always talk about, well, I'm in love, and you hear people say, well, I fell out of love with that person. I don't love that
Right.
person anymore.
Mm,
And love is a choice. Love
yep.
is a decision that we make. And it reminds me, Duke, you'll like this. It reminds me of a thrice lyric.
Come
I,
on.
I think it's called "The Weight" is the name of the song. And I was looking for it in my office because what you said, Denise, just reminded me of it. But it says, "Love is not a." He says, "Love is not a." No, love is a loyalty sworn, not a burning for a moment. And
Mm,
it's the loyalty to
Mm.
say that I won't abandon you just because we have a difference. I'm not going to walk out on you in my marriage. I am here. I am promising. That's what our vows are. Our
yeah.
vows aren't saying, "Oh,
Yeah.
I love you now and maybe I'll love you later." No, our vows are saying, "I'm going to choose to love you even when I don't want to." And I think
Yeah.
Mm,
marriage is a perfect example of what God, is trying to show us of what we need to do with others is make that decision, that choice to love people even when it's hard. Like for example, we were talking a little bit about love, and I was talking about First John, and when it says God is love, he's actually using the word agape, and it's not a love that like I love pizza. I love pizza.
mhm.
Pizza's great, but pizza has value to me. That's why I love it. What God is actually is that he he doesn't love you because you're valuable. You're valuable because you're loved. It's that
Mm,
decision that he made that of who in his nature to love us. It's almost like he can't choose another option but to love us. And
yeah.
that's
Mhm.
as little Christs, we are trying to value people because we are choosing to love them, not loving them because they have some value to us. Does that make
Mm.
sense? Or did I
Yeah,
Yeah.
for
confuse it? I
sure,
may have
for
Right.
confused
sure.
it.
Yep.
For sure. If I
That's
only love
that's
people because they can add value to my life, then I'm really loving myself, right?
Yep.
mhm.
If I'm only
Mhm.
honoring somebody because I feel like they can offer me something in return, then
You're
that's
honoring
that's not
yourself.
honor. It's all about me. It's
Yep.
selfish. It's selfishness.
Yep.
If I'm only like if I'm only sowing into somebody's life, if I'm only siding with somebody or agreeing, like whatever it is, like because I'm interested in what they can, and I think we probably subconsciously do this more than we would like to admit.
Oh yeah, for
But you
sure.
know what I mean? Like if I'm only doing something for this person because I'm thinking about what they're going to do for me in return or what I'm going to get out of it or how it's going to benefit me or how my life's going to increase or get better as a result, then yeah, I'm self-focused. I'm not
Mhm.
actually focused on the person.
I'm a leech. That's all I am. I
A
just
leech.
take, and I don't care. I mean,
I
leeches
per-
are like that. They
yeah.
drink the blood. They take whatever they get full fat, and they get detached from
Hmm.
yourself. But they left behind chaos. You know.
Yeah.
I mean, I'm not
What'd
a.
you say? How'd you say that? Say it again.
They leave behind chaos.
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 No, you're
Chaos.
chaos.
Chaos in
Kairos.
el caos.
Not
Kairos.
They just it's
Yeah.
selfishness is ugly. And a
Yeah.
lot of times we
It is,
don't
for sure.
recognize how selfishness can um what do you call it? Can cover itself with, self humility or self righteousness or things like that. It gives you the appearance to be good, but the heart behind it is not right.
Yeah.
So on
Yep.
that note,
And our world's
anyway,
looking for genuine.
yes.
Our world is looking for genuine. And if we could love people, before we condemn them, if we can do that and make those decisions before we, ostracize them, if we can do that, and I think that's genuine. That's a genuine thing. It's saying I love you even though I don't really, even though it's hard. I think you said it
Yeah.
earlier. That's a genuine thing I think our world is desperate for. Um,
Yeah.
but it's just, it's going to take a lot of work on the men and women of Christ to be
Mhm.
able to not, a lot of people look at it as wimpy. They're like, "Well, that's just so wimpy. Aren't you gonna make a stand?" And I'm like, man, Jesus
But for the
sure
sake
looked
of
like a
what?
wimp. Yeah.
Sometimes we value that stand higher than the value
Hmm.
of what? Like,
Yeah.
as a leader, as a pastor, I mean, I have opinions. Trust me, I have opinions about things. But I have to weigh my opinions and realize, hold on, is my opinion really more important than destroying a relationship? Is my opinion
Hmm.
really more important than the soul of someone? No, it is
Right.
not. At
Right.
the end of the day, it is not.
Right.
Because it's not about me. Like I live
Mm,
to know him and make him know. And
that's
in
right.
me, having a stand or keeping my opinion destroys those that I could draw closer to him. I don't want it. I just don't want it. It's not worth it. It's not worth
Mm,
it because he
yeah.
is more valuable, and all he's done in my life, if I want people to experience that, I want them to
Hmm.
see that.
That's
He's
good.
love. He's worth it. Like he is more worth it than anything
Yeah.
else.
Hmm.
I think
That's so true.
Paul said, like I counted all things as lost for the knowledge of him.
Everything. Yep.
It doesn't matter.
I
But to
I
know
think he
him,
says,
that is
doesn't
what
he?
matters.
Scandala, I think is the Greek word he uses there, and I think it means poop.
Scandala.
Yeah, like
Yeah, or
rubbish
something
or
like that.
Rubbish.
yeah, dung, I think is one of the translations. Yeah.
That sounds
And
like
it,
something
it
else.
was a strong
Yep.
word back then, which
Yep.
it brings up a whole nother fun subject about like
I know.
cuss words. It's funny, we have
All right.
these words that are cuss words, and back then there were no cuss words. There were just strong language, like I'm trying to
Right.
express this. And when the Bible says, like something coming out of your mouth, like make sure it's not filthy, that's like coarse talk, or like when we talk about cursing and we think, well, curse is like a swear word, right?
It's
But
like the
really what a
devil in my
curse
lips.
is, yeah,
That's what a
a
lot of
curse
people
word
think.
is exactly. But a curse word isn't the F word,
I know.
and a curse word isn't like the S word or whatever. What actually a curse is that the Bible's talking about is when you say, I hate you, or go
Yeah.
kill yourself, or you're stupid. You're putting a curse on somebody. That's why, FU is a terrible thing for two reasons. Obviously, it's a cultural taboo, but another thing, you are condemning that person, you're
Mm.
cursing that person.
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
And that can, but I think it's just as bad to call somebody a fool or stupid, like you're an idiot.
Yeah.
You are actually cursing that person.
Yeah.
But we
Yeah.
just overlook that, like, well, we didn't say a cuss word, so I didn't do anything wrong. I'm
Yeah.
sorry, I totally changed the subject, but
It's
I
okay.
find it
No, it's
Because
cool.
fascinating.
listen, I just want to say goodbye. I have to get going because I have to go to work today. But I
Bye.
wanted to jump in the podcast, and it was great talking to you and everything. You
Have
guys
Thanks for
keep it
coming.
up. It
have
was
fun
Thanks
great.
for
at
being here, baby.
You're
have fun
welcome.
at the pharmacy.
I will. I will.
Have
All
fun.
right, you wanna keep going, keep
Have a good
talking about
time.
that. That's a
Yeah,
good thing.
let me I'm gonna mute for 1 second so she can get her
Take my mic.
mic off.
Sure. Yeah, go for it. Yeah, while she's doing that, because my kids come home from school and they'll be like, "Yeah, Dad, I heard this guy. He said this word," and I'm like, um, they're like, "That was a bad word. I can't believe they said that." I'm like, "Okay." And then like 10 minutes later, I see her. She's over there, telling her sister that she's ugly or something like that. I'm like, I told her one day, I said, "Yo, you literally are doing something worse than what that kid said earlier in school. Like it's
Wow.
worse because you just put a curse on your daughter or on my daughter on your sister." And whoa, we zoomed
Like
in there.
zoomed way in. I was just
You
trying
got
to.
you gotta
Sorry,
watch it. You
I
gotta
hope
watch
you didn't get whiplash just now. I
Yeah,
didn't warn you or anything.
this is why people need to watch the podcast so you can see
Yeah,
the
if you're
crazy things
listening, don't
happening.
even worry about it.
Hey,
Yeah, dude.
it's
Well,
crazy, isn't
I
that
was
isn't
gonna
that
say like
interesting
there,
though?
yeah, because yeah, there's this whole thing about like Jesus talked to the Pharisees about being he called them at one point, right, whitewashed tombs.
Mm,
Um and there's this thing
August
that we
Burns Red
do.
song right there.
What'd you say?
August Burns Red. August Burns
Bro,
Red.
August Burns
Whitewashed tombs.
Red at Furnace Fest was so cool. I
We
was
got
only
listen. I have that written down to talk to you about, so we'll get there in a minute. But
okay, yeah, we'll
but
go there.
anyway, he called them
Don't let
whitewashed. We call them.
don't let me
Yeah, I
forget.
won't.
But yeah, like you're saying, like we can do this thing where because there's a certain taboo on something, like I could think of myself as like, oh, I'm more righteous because I don't say those kinds of words, but at the same time, I'm
Mhm.
condemning people and falsely, like judging people and doing like these different things and thinking that I'm okay just because I'm not saying one of those words. You know what I mean?
Yeah,
And so I kind
yeah,
of elevate. It's a religious thing. You know what I mean? I'm not saying like
yeah.
just start throwing cuss words around like it's nothing. I'm just saying
Mhm.
don't judge like we just have this thing. It's like we've learned to judge things a certain way. I don't know. They're
Well, think about it. Think about how people
sorry, my
talk
wife
about
was asking me where the car keys are. I
oh,
don't
that's
know.
funny. I don't know. Well,
I
think
don't know.
about how the way we talk to celebrities, right? Think about how the way we talk about presidents or politicians. It's like they forget that those people are the image of God. Like they are made in the image of God. And when you're throwing down curses just because you don't know them, you're still not, that's not the right thing to do. Like, I'm sorry. That's not what a Christian is
For
supposed to be
sure.
doing. It's like, but you see it all the time saying, this president is an idiot. This guy's a blah, blah, blah. He's a snake. And it's like, yo, you're cursing that guy. Like, I'm not saying you can't be critical. You should be critical of every
Yeah.
president. You should be looking for that, looking for what to improve on and seeing things. I'm not saying bury your head in the sand, but I'm also saying, as Christians, we should be known for our love. That's a wild statement. I wonder where that comes from.
Yeah, I wonder
It's
who
like,
said that.
yeah, like they will know. That's what Jesus says. Think about this for a second. They will know that
That
I
you
am God based on how you love one another. That's crazy because
nuts.
it's on our shoulders of how we love people will reveal how God is God. That's crazy. Isn't that wild? That
It's
is
nuts.
so much. That is so much. Like we think, well, God's going to reveal himself. No, he says that the way you love one another, by that's how people will know that I am the truth. I am the truth, that I'm the way, that I'm the life. And I'm
Yeah.
like, whoa, that's a lot of pressure. But at the same time, that shows you how important it is. It's crazy. That's just a wild statement, man. That is so that proclamation that he made when he said that is like,
Yeah.
whoa,
And he
pretty
says
cool.
to and he also says they'll know that you're my disciples by your love for one another.
Yeah,
You know?
right there.
It's amazing. It's like the the responsibility or not the responsibility, let me say it, the authority that he's given to us is so much bigger, I think, than we realize. And it's not about
Mm,
us. The point is not for us to, like you said, like it's pressure, but it's not. Like the point is not for us to come under pressure of having to, anytime we get into like a performance mentality or something like that, oh, I have to do this because then we're focused on ourselves. We're not focused on him. And so we're gonna get in the wrong place. The intentions are good. You know what I mean? The intentions behind it are good, but the focus is self. And that never gets
yeah.
us in the to the right destination. So when he says they'll know you're my disciples by your love for one another, that's a big deal because
Yep.
like you were saying, we actually, in the way that we act, the way that we treat people, we help people get either a good understanding, a good picture of who God is, or a misrepresented version of who God is. I was just preaching about this yesterday, man, how we misrepresent God in so many
Mm,
ways.
mhm,
And one of the areas that I pointed out, and this might shift the subject a little bit. I hope it doesn't do it too much, but one of the areas that I pointed out, and I didn't even, it wasn't planned, it wasn't part of the message, it just kind of came out. It was like when we operate from a place of lack, or like when my mentality is coming from a place of lack, I'm gonna misrepresent God every single time. And so
mm,
God's a God of abundance. And so whether I'm talking about, and I wasn't even really talking about money. I mean, it was in there, it's part of it, but like if I'm thinking about lack in terms of the assignment God has given me, the what he's called me to, the gifts and the talents that he's placed within me, anything that God has given to me, here's the deal. Nothing belongs to us. Money, like nothing belongs to us. We're just simply administrators of God's stuff because everything in this earth
mhm,
belongs to God. Everything we have is because he's allowed us to have it, and we're just administrating, we're stewarding the things of God. And so when I'm focused on myself, when I'm focused on my ability to make things work, when I'm coming at the things that God has placed in front of me, when I'm coming at those things from a mindset that's based on lack instead of
mhm,
abundance,
mhm.
that means that I'm focused on my resources, that I'm focused on my ability to make something happen instead of God's ability to make something happen. And so if
Right.
I'm focused on my economy rather than God's economy, if I'm focused on my ability rather than God's
Mm,
ability, then there's going to be all this
mm,
pressure on me, and I'm going to underperform, and I'm going to underserve people. I'm going to undervalue people. Like I'm just going to attack things in a very different way because I'm going to be thinking about me. I'm going to be thinking about
right.
things like, if I give all of this away, then I'm going to run out and it's going to be gone. I'm going to think
Mm,
in terms of, if I used to do, and maybe I still do it. I don't know. I haven't thought about this in a while, but I used to do this thing where I'd be spending time with God and God would give me revelation, and I'd be worried about, like, I would get this sermon that I thought was so good, or like this teaching truth I thought was so good, and I wouldn't want to release it. I'd like hold on to it. I'd be like, no, I
mm,
need to wait for a better opportunity. I need to wait till I'm in front of more
mm,
people. And I would want to hold on to that thing thinking, again, it's a scarcity mindset that I had, and it
mm,
was, if I release this, then it's going to be out there and it's going to be gone, and then what if I don't get more revelation? And that's such a dumb thing
mm.
because he's always got more for me. But if I'm
Right.
holding on to what I have right now and I don't release it, then why is he going to give me more? Like if my hands are, figuratively my hands are closed because I'm holding on to the stuff that he's given me and I'm not administering it well. What did we see in the story of like the three guys with the talents? He's like, the
Mm,
guy that had one and who just hit it in the ground and didn't do anything with it. The master came back at the end and he took it and he gave it to the guy that had the most. And we
yeah.
think, well, that's not just, that's not fair. But he gave it to the guy that knew how to make something happen with the resources that were in his hands. He took it away from the guy who was afraid, so he just hid it and didn't do anything with it. And he gave it
Mm,
to the guy that had proven that he was able to administrate and to steward the resources in his hands well. And God wants us
mm,
to learn how we represent him well when we learn how to steward the things that he's given to us well. And we
mm.
don't do
Yep.
that when we operate from this place of like lack of, oh, we're going to run out. I'm not talking
Yeah.
about making stupid financial decisions. I'm not even talking about finances. I'm just talking the mindset that we approach life and people with.
Right.
It's got to be based on his ability,
Mm,
not on our ability. And anytime it's on our
mhm.
ability, that's when we come under the pressure of having to do things and having to get it right and all this kind of stuff. Where again, I think the whole thing that it comes down to God wants us to be free. He wants us to be so
Yeah.
free in
Yeah.
Him. You know what I mean?
I wanted to just say though, because I'm afraid somebody's going to say Jesus didn't say that. The when I was talking about like them knowing that who I am,
Yep.
that thing. When Jesus said that, he was praying. He was saying to the Lord, I believe, he was saying to his Father, he's like, I and them, and you and me, so they may be brought to complete unity, right?
Mhm.
And then the world
Yep.
would know that you sent me, right? The world would know you sent
Yep.
me because of their unity and have loved them even as you have loved me. So I just wanted to make sure anybody, that's John 17:23, if anybody was like, Jesus didn't say that. He did. But no, going back to what you're saying, it's funny, like holding on. You had mentioned like that scarcity mindset and holding on to stuff. I think Paul Johansson once said, like whatever God gives to us, we hold like this. We hold with open hands. So if he gives you money, it's with open hands. If he gives you a career, a calling, whatever, you're holding it like
Mhm.
this, allowing him to take it if he needs to for his kingdom and his purposes, right? But
Mhm.
if you're grabbing onto something like you had done this, so like I'm holding on to something, brother Paul Johansson said, you're going to get drugged down the street on the back of a Cadillac, and it's like there's so much
Yep.
truth to that because whatever, like if you're in a
Yeah.
scarcity mindset, like you said, or a poverty mindset, it's like you're gripping and holding on to something with all it's like because that's what it's like. That's not your going back to what I said earlier. That's not your foundation. Your finances are not your
Come on.
foundation. Heck, even Jesus said your family isn't. In comparison, you should hate your family uh, because of how much you love me.
Yeah.
And it's these things that we grip onto and we hold on to that, like you said, it's almost like putting a dam up and not allowing God to his
That's
goodness
right.
to flow out.
That's right.
I think that's awesome that you said that, and you also were saying like, it's not me, it's him. He's the one. I'm just walking in obedience, doing everything he's called me to, step after step after step. I'm just walking in what he's called me to. But if you're in a
Yeah.
scarcity mindset, you're just going to try to get planted down and not move. No, that's good
For
stuff,
sure.
man. That's good stuff.
Yeah.
I want to ask you. You went to Furnace Fest. For those listening, maybe I don't know. We're like an hour and a half in this. Uh, tell them what Furnace
People come
Fest
and go.
is.
It's alright.
So some people have no idea. I'm sure.
Did you say just say what
Tell.
Furnace Fest is?
Yeah.
Okay, yeah, so Furnace Fest was and is because now they're gonna keep it going apparently.
Yeah.
So
That's
Furnace
awesome.
Fest started back in, I think it was 2000. It ran from
Hmm.
2000 to 2003, in Birmingham, New York, at a place called Sloss Furnaces, and it was a very, just a large, it's like a punk, emo, metal, hardcore kind of, music festival back in the day. um, Christian Christians at the forefront of it, a lot of Christian bands, but not exclusively Christian bands.
Hmm.
And then I don't really remember, and I've been told the story so many, like 3 or 4 times, and I always forget why it stopped. But for whatever reason, it stopped in 2003, and they just revamped it this year, they tried to revamp it in 2020. It was supposed to be Furnace Fest 2020, but then because of the pandemic, they ended up having to postpone it. So it just took place in September, and yeah, it was like 90 bands on 3 stages over 3 days, and just a lot of, yeah, metal, hardcore, emo bands, just the music scene. But the thing that was really special about it was that they basically ran it. Their mindset was, let's invite bands that we would have invited in 2004 if we didn't have to cancel it all those years ago. And so it was like all the bands that we grew up with, um, for, my generation. I'm 35. How old are you? 37, 6 to 7?
37. Yeah.
37.
37.
So like a whole bunch of bands that we grew up with, a whole bunch of bands that are like not even together anymore that just got back together for that weekend.
So
Um,
cool.
but it was just
So cool.
a really special thing.
What were your top give me your top 5. Your top 5 in no particular order. Your top 5 bands that you saw.
The ones that I just really enjoyed the most, were for sure Beloved, because they were the reason I was there. Like,
Yeah.
if I'm being honest, they were the band
Shout out
that
to Joe. Joe, where you
Joe
at?
Bustin.
I
Yeah.
love that guy.
That made it so much more special too, man, just, like, the fact that I kinda had that I told him when he came back on the podcast, we did sort of a Furnace Fest recap, and,
Mhm.
I told him, like, I felt like it was even more special because I sort of had a little bit of a personal connection at that point, to him and therefore to the band, and so it just made it more special, but, like,
Did you get to
we had
connect with
really
him
good
there or no?
What's up?
Did you get to connect with him there or no?
Yeah, briefly.
Cool.
Briefly. It was their merch line was hours and hours long, and so,
Yeah.
yeah, I walked up to him, and, we, talked, met face to face and stuff like that, but I didn't wanna take a lot of his time because he's got such a heart for the fans, and, I
Mm.
mean, he stood out there that day and probably, like, he said, like, he felt like he probably hugged about 1,000 people. You know what I mean? Like, it
Wow.
was people waiting for
Wow.
hours in the line to, like, buy a T-shirt and just to, like, talk to them for a second, and, he's very compassionate, he's just got a big heart, for his fans, and so I wasn't
Cool.
trying to be like, "Just talk to me, man, like, forget about all these people," so I kinda snuck up there and said, "Hey," and then I was able to meet Josh as well, which was cool,
Oh, cool.
and, but yeah, I didn't stay long, so,
Yeah, you didn't wanna be a fanboy.
yeah, for sure. But yeah, man, but it was cool just kinda having that personal connection. That was awesome. There was a lot of nostalgia there. It felt like a moment. Here's the thing. Um, you know Chad, right? Or who
Mhm.
Chad is? So
Yeah.
Chad is like the
Chad
face
Johnson.
of Furnace Fest, basically, and, he came out and talked and actually prayed. I don't know if you've seen any of the videos maybe of, like, him
Mm-mm.
praying, like, he came out and talked and shared his heart for a few minutes, and then actually, like, prayed over the crowd right before Beloved set started. Like, Beloved was up on stage about to start, and he came out. Like, that was the moment that he chose to address Furnace
Mm.
Fest, and
Wow.
really a big part of it was that Beloved, this is what Joe told me, that Chad told him that when Beloved decided that they were gonna, because they had been approached early on, of like, this is a possibility. We're thinking about revamping Furnace Fest, but one of the name of like the bands, like one of the bands that just keeps coming up that we're seeing over and over, it is like Beloved. If you can get Beloved back together, we'd be in. And so when
Mm.
Beloved decided to come back together for Furnace Fest, because Beloved broke up in 2005. So it was a lot. It
Yeah.
was 16 years. So
Crazy.
when they said, "Yeah, we'll do it," this is what Chad said. That Chad said, that's when he knew we have to make this happen. So there was like a
Mm.
connection between Furnace Fest happening and Beloved's, kind of coming back together. There was a connection there. And so, but anyway, it was that moment. It was really cool because Chad came out, he prayed over everybody. It was like pretty like powerful. I actually have it on video. If you're interested, I could send it to you. And then Beloved set was just awesome, and it was like it was rough. I was getting knocked around. I was getting kicked in the head by crowd surfers, and like I kept losing my glasses, and I was terrified. Like one of the lenses popped out, and so about 4 songs in, I kind of went off to the side a little bit where I wasn't all up in the chaos, but
Or
it just
chaos.
felt like a moment where everybody there was connected. It was just something like
Mm.
a really special sort of a community moment,
That's sweet.
and that was really cool. Showbread's show, I
I
hadn't
heard.
seen them in so many years. They were great. They were,
Yeah.
as I think they were one of the best sets of the entire weekend. Obviously, I didn't see
I've heard
everybody
that.
because I couldn't see
I've
everybody.
heard everybody said that that was the, like, most, like, underrated show. Like, it was, like, it far exceeded expectations, and even people were showing up who, weren't really a fan of Showbread, and then was like they were like, "Dude, like, like falling in love with them. And I still think that band right now could be I totally think this. That band right now could be relevant even today. Like that band is still that the style, what they do, it's quirky, it's different.
Yeah.
I still think it would be relevant. I think it's so unique. Their stage presence. I mean, Josh looks like that lead singer. I mean,
Looks like he's
holy
20,
cow,
25 years old.
dude! And he's like my age, and I'm like, look at that dude. And he's a pastor, which is cool. You should get him on here, bro. You should get him on here. That would be sick. Ask Joe to get
Do
you
you have a
Josh Guy's
connection?
number.
Okay. Well, Joe doesn't know him
Ah,
because I
darn.
talked to Joe. But I mean, he can probably get in touch with them. They have played together in the past. He just doesn't know
I
them super well.
may have a connection with somebody. I could probably see if I can get that,
One of
but
the best
yeah, that's
moments
cool.
of Furnace Fest, in my opinion, was when Josh spoke. Have you heard about this? With
Mm-mm,
what he shared?
mm-mm.
I still haven't been able to find the actual video. They ended on "Stabbing Art to Death," which is just a
Yeah.
super awesome, like 7.5 minute long song, and that song was designed for a live show. Like you
Mm,
could just tell, like the way that it's written, and it has all these different parts, and it's really cool. But right before the last song, he talked for about maybe a minute, minute and a half, and I butchered it last time when I brought this up, but he said something to the effect of, um, let me see, I'm trying to get my thoughts right. In a society or in a day when it's normal to leave. And what he was referring to is, like, it's normal to leave your faith. It's normal to, forget about, what you're doing, forget about people. Like, when it's normal to walk away, and the way he said it
mm,
was in a day where it's normal to leave, faithfulness is the new rebellion. And that was sort of
mm.
like the crux of what he was saying. But he was talking about how,
That's cool.
he's like, "These songs that we wrote all these years ago, they mean more to me now than they ever have." And it really resonated with me because I'd been thinking about it all weekend. There were so many bands that we, were listening to when we were in, like, high school and stuff like that, and they were Christian back then, or they had Christian affiliation back then, but now it seems like so many have kind of left that
Mm,
world, or have just
mhm,
kind of, strayed away and just kind of gone a little bit more, secular, mainstream, whatever you want to call it. But so it's really cool that he said that, and the way that he related it to, like, because the whole idea of, like, the punk rock genre being started, it was really, like, birthed out of a rebellion, but not just a rebellion for the sake of we wanna be bad people. Like, it's not that. It's like we stand for something, and so there's a sense of rebellion there when you're standing for something that's countercultural. But he's like, the
right.
thing is kind of flip-flopped to the point that now the normal thing is for people to quit their relationships, to quit their marriages, to quit their faith, to quit on things when they get difficult. And I didn't mean to
Mm.
start preaching based on what this
No, it's good. It's
on what
awesome.
Josh said, but it was just super cool. And he's like, it is the rebellion these days to stay faithful to what you
Yeah,
believe. And
that's
it
awesome.
was a really cool moment. And their set was just epic. And Juliana Theory, I was
Yeah.
supposed to only stay for a little bit because August Burns Red was playing behind them. I think I'm getting that right.
Wow.
And I just couldn't do it, man. Like, I couldn't leave. It was so good.
Yeah,
They were just
that's
so
awesome.
feel good, and yeah, they connected with the audience really well. I just couldn't leave, so I stayed for the whole thing, and then I ran to the main stage, and I caught the last 3 songs of August Burns Red, and they did like a wall of death. For anybody that doesn't know what that is, it's like a giant mosh
Mhm.
pit that just, like, opens up, like, in a, like, really huge, and then people basically, like, run together. It's pretty crazy, but it wasn't the kinda
They
crowd
did
that was
that
trying to
on
hurt each other, for
they did
sure.
that
It was
on Mariner's Trench, right? That was the song they did it on?
Yeah, yep, yep. So the last 3 songs I caught, I basically ran there and, like, got in the pit for the last, couple songs, and that was a really cool, moment
That's
too. And
cool.
then my last really fun moment was, on Fit for a King.
Mm,
I forget where I was, but I ran over there too, basically got there for the last 2 songs, And on the I think it was on the last song, the guy, I don't even know the lead singer's name for Fit for a King, but
Oh,
he asked for a circle pit, but he wanted the circle pit to be, like, around the sound booth, like, the sound thing in the middle. So it's just like a gigantic circle opened up, and we're just, like, running around, like, doing laps around this thing, like, high-fiving everybody. It was just a really fun moment. It was huge,
that's
and it was the
cool.
middle of the day, like, it was light out, and, so you weren't falling on the ground and stuff like that. But yeah, that was just a fun
That's sweet,
moment,
man.
you know what I mean? Um
So you said, Beloved, Showbread, Juliana Theory. You only caught August Burns Red at the last 3 songs, and then
Yeah,
what was 5 is what would 5 be?
and, was
Fit for a King.
the circle pit at Fit for a King.
That's cool.
If I'm just going bands, my number 4 would be, bro, Under Oath Set, and
Really?
I wasn't expecting, I just didn't have high expectations 'cause
Yeah.
I'm just not really into their newer stuff as much.
Mhm.
Dude, they threw back, man. They did at least 3 songs that I remember,
They did
I
When
know
the
for sure they
Sun
did 3
Sleeps.
songs from They're Only Chasing Safety, and they did When the Sun Sleeps.
I remember where I was. I remember listening to that song. I was at Elam, and if you remember, there was a this is man, for some people, you're gonna be like, "What are you talking about?" Before streaming services and during
Yeah,
the time of CDs, there was a website called purevolume.com.
I remember.
I believe that came from a website prior to that was called mp3.com, and that's where you could like listen. That's where I discovered May.
Yeah,
I discovered May with
wow.
mp3.com in 2002 or 2003, right in that range. But I can remember listening around that time to When the Sun Sleeps on Pure Volume and being like, this band, I'd never heard the screaming singing combination like they did. Like they were like the forerunners of that genre. And I can
Mm,
remember hearing that going, this band is going to blow up. And
mhm.
I actually had the pleasure of playing with them in with Under Oath. I got to play a show with them in a band I was in called Edison. That was the same type. We were singing and screaming at the
Yeah,
same
yeah,
time.
yeah,
And
yeah.
honestly, there were, we called it, we didn't know what to call it. We didn't call it Screamo because that wasn't even a title yet. We called it
Right.
like like pop metalcore is the only
Pop
thing that
metalcore.
pop metalcore is the only thing I
That's
could
cool.
describe it as. And then Screamo kind of took on. But I can remember playing a show with them, and then afterwards, Aaron Gillespie, he was just this like little short, like chubby kid, and he comes
Yeah.
over and he's like, hey, man, do you know where we can get some buffalo wings? I said, okay, dude, we don't call them buffalo wings, we just call them wings, but I will take you, let's go. So we went out and had a great time. That's when Dallas was in the band. Dallas is,
Yeah, man.
then,
Oh,
I pray for that dude too, man. He's having a
y
struggling time. He was the
yeah.
lead vocalist, I guess you would say, the lead screamer, and
Mhm.
it was a very rocky relationship at that time. I could tell, I could see the writing on the walls that things were. I thought they were going to break up. He was on his cell phone, like the old Nokia the bricks, and he was on his cell phone like the whole time while we were hanging out because he wanted to, be on the phone with his girlfriend and they were fighting all this stuff. So, and he
Okay.
didn't do load in, he didn't take anything out. Like all of us did that. So it was a weird time. And I can remember when that happened. Now, I say the story and nobody believes me, but I promise it's true. I was on Instant Messenger and I got a message from Aaron Gillespie asking if I would try out for Under Oath. I promise that's true.
Yeah.
Promise that's true.
I
I
believe
was
you.
I was at Elam. I can remember being in my dorm room when it happened, and I was like, "Dude, I'm at Bible school. The band I was in quit. That kind of stuff. I'm not like this is what I'm called to do." Like, and honestly, to be truthfully honest, I did not think that they were gonna blow up like they did, and they went and got Spencer. I
Yeah.
guess from what I was told, they put out a bunch of feelers out there. I think there was a guy filling in for Dallas for a little bit, but Spencer was the perfect vocalist for that band. So I'm glad they went.
Did they want you
I
for
don't know how
vocals
serious
and guitar,
for
or did he not
just screaming.
just vocals?
Yeah.
So you would have
But
been the um
yeah,
you
it's crazy, dude. It's weird.
you would have
It's
been the front man.
it. Yeah, I mean, yeah. If I like, I had to fly down to Florida, and all that kind. I didn't have any money. It
Sure.
was like I don't know, and they were just they were a scene band at the time. They weren't. They were just a band that nobody knew of. So it wasn't like later on when they're only chasing safety came out. I'm like, oh my gosh, like, this is crazy.
It was
This
so
this
good.
band is insane, and I've never talked to Aaron since then. No, that's not true. I saw him at there's a music festival up here that's similar to Furnace Fest, but it's one day, and it was in Elmira, New York. It's a free concert, and he was there with the Almost, and
Yeah.
like he totally blew me off. Like,
Oh, yeah.
he didn't know, he didn't remember me, he didn't know me, he didn't nothing. It was a very
Yeah.
painfully awkward conversation that I had with him, and hey, whatever. I've heard that from some people. I'm sure he's a great guy, but when you got that many people trying to talk to you, I'm sure it gets very
Sure.
uh, frustrating at times. So I'm giving him grace. I'm giving him, trying to see things from his point of view. But
There you go.
that's cool, man. I mean, I watched a lot of YouTube videos of Furnace Fest, and yeah, I was surprised that they did that song. That was cool. I also, when they did that song, I thought it was awesome they did it, but it made me realize how far they've come, because even the structure of that song is very clunky and awkward at times,
Right.
and like
Right.
there's moments where it could have been produced better, and yeah, it is what it is. So
Yeah.
that's cool, man. They're talking about having this other one, and I see some things online like, who would you like to see come back for next year at Furnace Fest? If this is like bringing bands back together, who would you like to see come back together?
Mm.
And my number one is 238. Number
Yeah.
one, 238. I want to see them back together. That would be awesome. That's like
Mm.
on the same level for me as Beloved. Like, to see two. Have you ever listened to them or no?
Yeah. Yeah. Back in the day.
Love that band. Love that band.
Yeah.
Like, they that was crazy. So, and yeah, did you were you able to catch the Get Up Kids or no?
I didn't. That was, where was I?
Was it
Um,
Zayo? Was Zayo on that at the same time
no,
or
you know
something?
what? I didn't go to Zayo, actually. That was
Hmm.
a hard decision for me to make, but I actually didn't go to Zayo because if I remember right, I'm pretty sure Zayo was playing during, Thursday, and I just really wanted to
Mm,
I'm, like, Jersey at heart, and, like,
dude,
I just wanted to see Thursday so bad.
that would be a tough decision for
They've
sure.
been
Like,
like I had been some of the shows I went to back in the day with, like, Thursday were some of, like, my favorite show memories, and so I
yeah,
just wanted the nostalgia
dude,
of that for sure.
the way he swings that microphone in, like, it's
Yep.
just so stinking cool. Like, dude, he's
Yeah.
so cool. I remember I've seen Thursday a handful of times, and I've loved everyone. And then I saw, I this is a cool story. The first time I ever saw Zayo was the first metal show that I've ever been to in my entire life. Like, I had never gone to one before. And my friend was like kind of trying to get me into it. I'm like, I don't know, man. The vocals are so weird. I was fresh into it.
Yeah,
And
sure.
I went and saw them. Their bassist quit on them, which it's like that band has like a revolving door of musicians.
Right.
But the bassist, the bassist quit, so they didn't have a bassist, and they played at this bar in Buffalo called the Basement Bar, which is called something else now. But
Okay.
just a dirty base. It looks like a basement. That's what it was.
Yeah.
And I remember that was the first time I had ever witnessed like hardcore dancing, where they're like doing
Yeah.
windmills and all that kind of stuff. The first time I'd ever seen that. And I was like, put your hands up, and I just saw
Yep.
everybody else do that. I'm like, oh, I better do that too. Like, I don't want to get hit in the face. And that was wild. That was like such a cultural, like wow, like I was in culture shock in a moment, but also so influenced because the music, like people hear the screaming and they're like, what is this? Is it terrible or
Right.
satanic or whatever? and I'm like, dude, it was so melodic. Like
Mm.
I heard like the sweetness of it. I heard the melody. I felt the emotion of that
Yes,
show,
sir.
of their songs, and it was where Blood and Fire Brings Rest is what they were
Mm.
touring on. And I'm like,
Yeah.
I think like that album still today. I put it in, and it's just like it's a symphony. It's like, oh, such a great
Yep.
stinking album. I love it from front to cover. It's like one of my top favorite. So, but Thursday, I mean, I can remember where I was when I heard Thursday. My friend got Full Collapse on CD, and we were driving in the backwoods here of Western New York, and we just drove around listening to it over and over again, and understanding in a car crash was like,
Yep.
oh, the song is insane. Like, how do they do this? How are they making these sounds? It was so cool. Good stuff, man.
Yeah. Yeah, man. So that was really good. They ended on War All the Time, which was uh
Yeah.
that's always been one of my favorite songs. And so that was
I
tight.
remember where I was when I first heard that. I was at NISM.
Oh
I
yeah.
was at New York School of Urban Ministry for
Come
Elam
on.
on our thing, and I got that CD with Ben Schultz, and I remember hearing that. I remember listening to that on a Walkman. Remember those? I brought my
I
Walkman
do.
with me. We didn't
I
have
do.
anything else. We
A
also listened
Walkman.
to the other
I'm pretty sure there
album
were
that
well there
they
were
were
no
what?
MP3 players, but was it an actual Walkman or was it the kind where you put a CD in it? I assume it
Yeah, yeah. It
was a
was the
CD, a
Discman,
Discman. Yeah.
right? Is that
Yeah,
what they
there
call
you
it?
go.
That and the other album, Jersey Boy. Here you go. The other album that was big was Brand New's Deja Entendu.
Dude,
Me and Ben, like Ben Schultz, that's
huge.
all we listened to is that album
Huge.
over and over and over and over. And I'm like,
Me too,
you know,
man.
there's a part of the world we live in with, everything's singles and everything's like one song, and there's something about listening to albums like front to cover, like,
Mhm.
and just taking it in like that. I don't know, like I miss that part of it.
Yeah, it was a whole thing, like, you would run I remember the day that Under Oath's "They're Only Chasing Safety" came out, and I was a senior in high school, and, like, when school got out, I went directly to it was a record store called Curmudgeon, where I used to live, and I went directly there and, like, bought the CD immediately. I remember, like, one of my friends, like, passing me, 'cause and, like, holding the CD out the window, like, he got it before I did,
Oh,
like, it was, like, a thing. You know what I mean? But that was,
that's
like, a
awesome.
thing, and it was a whole thing. So you would get the CD, you'd pull out the discography, and you'd, like, read the lyrics, and
Hmm.
you'd look at the artwork, and you'd do all that stuff as you're listening to it. You'd probably listen to it, like, 3 times through. It was a whole different way of consuming music back then that yeah, it's completely different than today because now we just do it on Spotify or like YouTube or whatever it is. And it's so much
Yep.
more accessible. It's easy to get stuff and you can find n- new music like more easily. But that was part of the fun back in the day, man, was like being the first one. Like I
Yeah.
remember like I was the first one. I mean, I'm pretty sure I was the first one in my high school that knew who Emery was. Because I got into Emery when all they had was Walls as a single.
Yeah.
Their album hadn't
Yeah.
even come out yet. It was just that on a Tooth and Nail. I forget what it was called. Um, but it was like a Tooth and
Oh,
Nail
was
like
it
sampler kind of a deal. And
the
it
songs
was
from the
on
penalty box?
dude, that's yeah, yeah. Yep.
Could have been that. That was a good
Yeah,
one.
that sounds super familiar. I can't remember for sure if that was the one that it was on, but definitely like I remember that. And like, I remember, like, it was just a cool thing. It was sort of like what NFTs are today. It's like I had this
Hmm.
thing, like, I was the first one because then a whole bunch of my friends got into them, and then, we used to keep score. Like, we literally used to keep score of,
Wow.
"Oh, this was my band. Like, I got you into them." And,
That's
I didn't have a
cool.
whole lot. I didn't have a ton because, I just wasn't, like, as into discovering new artists as, like, some other p kids were. Like, some
Hmm.
other kids were finding stuff, like, left and right. My friend Dan that I went to Furnace Fest with is awesome at that, of just
That's
like back
cool.
in the day on stuff like mp3.com and then like the different places where you could,
Hmm.
probably illegally download music back in the
Hmm.
day and stuff like
Hmm.
that. Like,
LimeWire.
yeah,
Yep.
LimeWire. It was like
Yep.
Napster first, and then we had LimeWire. Then there was something with like
Yeah.
torrents.
Oh yeah.
Forget forget
Torrents are
and
still a thing. Just got to have a VPN if you're going to do
yep.
it.
And then we used to
Yo,
do like yeah, like burning
remember the
CDs and stuff like that.
yes, yes, and that
It was
was like
crazy.
I remember people were like, "Are we stealing this?" I don't remember because I remember a girl I knew had a CD burner, and like she would say, "We got to put it on the lowest setting so that it will be like the best quality. Because if you go too fast, it won't be as
Gotcha.
good or whatever." I don't know if
Yep.
that's true, but like that, I just believed it. So I got
Believed it.
Dashboard Confessional, Swiss Army Romance. I think was the first one, or maybe it was The Places That We've Come to Fear the Most. I can't remember, but that was the first
Mhm.
album I can remember. Like, oh, I got it on CD. That's cool, and it's burned. I didn't even have to buy it. Um, I wanted to show you this because, well, first of all, do you know what this is? Jersey
Uh,
band
no.
from Autumn to Ashes.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, I
Another
couldn't see it
Jersey
well.
band.
Yeah,
So
I went to their set too.
Um, so the cool thing I was just gonna say is, do you remember this trick? Like you first get it, it's got all the plastic all over it. It's got those stupid stickers on these sides, and it's like
I
always so
do.
hard to open.
You
I
pop the
remember
back
kids
off.
showing me, yes, you remember that? So you'd pop this, and then you could get it off so much easier, and just it's like those are tricks that kids will never know. It's like
Yeah, I loved showing that to people. It's like, "Dude, this is gonna blow your mind." Yeah, because someone showed
blow
it
your
to
mind,
me,
bro.
the same thing.
It's so
That's
funny.
so crazy.
I love that. I mean,
Yeah, it was just different
nostalgia
way.
is so fun. Too bad you're beautiful. I don't know. This was what year did this come out? 2001. Wow. That's crazy. Isn't that crazy? 2001. Wow.
Yeah, that is
So,
seriously crazy.
ugh,
But
cool,
yeah,
man.
bro.
This
Well,
was fun.
hey, I appreciate you. Yeah, it was fun for me. I appreciate you, yeah, just talking to me today.
We did a 2-hour one, dude. We're 2 hours in.
Dude,
I'll get
it's over
another
2
one.
hours. So,
Or like Joe Rogan.
I was gonna say you're basically my, you're like basically my red band. So like,
What do you
so
mean? What do you mean?
I wasn't sure. So like Joe Rogan has like Brian Redband has been on his
Oh
show like a
yeah,
million
yeah.
times. So you just kind of I love it. I
Yeah,
love that
that's
this
cool.
was the third time you've been on and I really appreciate it, man, for real.
Yeah,
I
man, it's
really enjoy
fun.
our conversations and I appreciate, your willingness to help me out here and spend this time with me.
That's
And I
awesome.
definitely enjoy it.
Thanks for having me, man. That's cool. Yo,
You have
real
anything to
quick.
plug before we go?
Yeah, yeah, I wanna plug this right here. This is my plug. This is the first band I was ever in, The Rejects.
The
The
Rejects
Rejects.
with an X.
See how the X is there, but it looks like a cross? See it?
Uh-huh.
So
I
this was
see that. It's like a
the
cross
very
turned on
first
it.
band, and this was my band I was in, so we recorded this during Y2K. Like the night of Y2K in
That's
this office that I'm in right now,
that's
where the
phenomenal.
drums and where we did the tracking. And on the other side, there's a window that goes into the other associate pastor, and he recorded me when I was like 15, 16 years old. So this was the album, but on the back, look at this website. Our email was the rejects at hotmail.com. Okay, but the website is www.geocities.com/sunsetstrips/gala/6525 the rejects.html. And we were so proud that we had a website, dude. It
That's
was
so cool.
and
Bro,
then like inside it's like we even got the logo on. How cool is that? Like, and it says the rejects are, and it says, me, Josh Whippy, guitar and vocals, Josh Russell, bass and vocals, Eric Kraft, guitar and vocals, and then finally Josh Mullen, drums and cymbals.
bro. Drums and cymbals.
And cymbals. And we signed it. We even signed it on the inside. We
Oh,
were so
look at you
cool.
guys.
I put Josh Whippy, and I put an X as the J over the J instead of an I, or instead of a dot, and I put Philippians 121 on there. And I
Bro,
know why I
you were
did that because there's a band
you
called
were
121, Ever
Uh-huh.
hear of them?
No.
I'll send it over to you. They were a hardcore punk hardcore band that kind of turned more into like a rock band, but they were called 121, and it was after Philippians 121 for me to live as Christ and die as gain.
That is awesome. The Rejects.
The Rejects,
What was your style?
punk. We were a punk band.
Oh yeah?
Yep. And we came out with this. I lost the cover. I don't know where it is, but this was our second album, and it's called A Solution for a Lifetime. I don't know why. It just is. You can actually find this on Spotify. It's terrible. Um,
Really?
we had 11 songs on here, and it was 2001 that we did this. So this album was punk. I would say more. Yeah, I mean, we had songs on here that were more like a hardcore punk, some gutter punk songs. There's some more of like a pop punk vibe in here. There's some
Okay.
and they're all terrible. They're all terrible. But at the time, we thought we were great. So
Did you do any screaming vocals?
yeah, this was where we started screaming
Okay.
more. And some of the songs, like I can remember being in the studio and this guy named Chip came in, and he was this big hardcore dude. And he came in and he was like, because I was skinny at the time, I was like a skinny little guy, a little Polish guy, and he was just like, "How do you get that out of you?" Like he was like, "How
Wow.
does that little kid make those sounds?" And
Wow.
I listen back to it now, and I'm pretty critical of it. But that's where I first started like discovering scream yell kind of thing. And then
Yeah.
that band I was telling you, that pop metalcore, that I was like taking that element and moving it more into a like that Zao, like that kind of poison the well, like kind of
Mhm.
scream. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Hope's
Yep.
Fall. You saw Hope's Fall too?
I
Did you get
did.
to see them?
I
That's another
did.
great
Yeah, I
band.
saw them. I didn't see their whole set though. Um, but it was cool because Jay from Hope's Fall came out to Juliana Theory um
Oh, cool.
and did a screaming part, which was really cool.
Did he do it on what's that song?
It was the line he's just screaming come on.
Come on.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah, yeah,
I
yeah.
forget the name of the song though. It might just
That's
be
off
come
of the
on.
is that off of the Understand This Is a Dream, the Blue album? Yeah, I think it
It's
is. So,
no, it's on uh I slipped my
Emotion is
mind.
Dead?
Emotion is Dead.
Yeah,
Yeah, because
yeah,
they
that's a good
actually
song.
played Emotion is Dead, like, the whole album.
Oh,
That's what they
sweet.
did.
That's
Yeah,
great. That's
yeah,
cool.
yeah, it was tight. But, yeah, bro, I'm
Well,
gonna
go Bills,
so
man,
I can
tonight,
find
buddy.
Edison on Spotify then for sure, right?
No, man, I don't have it on there. I have to
No?
look through I have it somewhere on a hard drive. I'll send it over because the only time we recorded was we were on a radio show for this is so funny. We were on a radio show for Buffalo State College. They had like a studio where we could set up and we played live. So
Yeah,
it's not the
clunky.
greatest,
Yeah,
quality, but I mean, you can hear the elements of it. The only problem is the other dude that thought he could sing couldn't, and he sounds like a
okay.
dead cow through most of it. But
Sounds like a dead
yeah,
cow.
I'll send it over to you though. I will. I'm gonna try to find it today because it's on my hard drive. Maybe I should post it online just so I have it digitally, somewhere
Ok
online.
okay, Josh Whippy, I've got one thing to plug, and then we can wrap this up, okay?
Yeah.
I'm gonna pull my plug up on the screen here. This is the limited edition pre-NFT, let's see, of, so I stole your photo and I signed it. I signed it
You
with my
signed it.
signature, and it's
That NFT is gonna go
the Real Life Talk
wild.
number 43, Josh Whippy. But we've got the guitar, we've got the buffalo in there, we've got,
Yeah, that's awesome. That's
yeah.
really funny.
So this is a fungible token at the moment because, it's duplicatable because it's not minted, um, but
That's
yeah.
funny. How do you get
If
that
anybody
minted?
wants it, I will NFT it up and sell it to you for for
Dude,
whatever you offer me.
that was taken at Camp Judah. Camp Judah, the camp that I serve at, summer camp. We do it for a week, and my buddy was the photographer. Really, just really quick story. This guy was in my youth group um, in Myrtle Beach back in 2005, and it was cool because I kind of put out I kind of put out a thing. Anybody want to work at a camp this year for a
Mhm.
week? You know, it's like a missions trip. Think about it like that. And he, or actually, we only did a 3-day camp this year because of COVID and restrictions that we had. We didn't know what to do. Anyway, he hit
Sure.
me up. He hit me up. I hadn't talked to him in years since like he left the youth group, you know, in 2006 or whatever. And he's like, "Yo, I'd like to work at the camp." I'm like, "Are you kidding me?" It turns out he's a pastor. Not only is he a pastor, but he looks similar to me. He's taller, but we look like we could be brothers. And
Mm.
we like the same music. Like we have not connected since then. And I remember having him at youth group play Jimmy Eat World,
Huh.
one of the songs from Bleed American as one of our songs that we were doing. I think Crimson, the one with Crimson and Clover, that one. And so I made him, that's when he first got introduced to like a alternative music, and never talked to him again after that. He's into all the same music I am, everything to the T. And he also, it's really creepy. He came over to my house. He flew in from South Carolina, stayed at my house, and I'm like, "Yo, every night before bed I watch a little bit of The Office." And he looks at me, he's like, "Dude, this is weird because so do I." Like, oh my gosh. So it was just a really cool experience. But yeah,
That's
that was
so
at
funny.
Camp Judah. Yeah,
I did that last
cool,
night.
man.
I don't do it every night, but I did that last night. I put on, I don't know, somewhere on season 3, I'm pretty sure, of The Office
Mhm.
before I
That's a
went
good
to
one.
bed.
Is that where Jim's in he's over in, yeah. So
He
Jim's not
starts
in
off
the
over there, and then they merge, and then he comes back, but then he's dating Karen, and so it's like
Mm.
tension. Yeah.
My favorite line from when they come back is, "I don't know what I'm grabbing here." He's trying to get Tony up on the table. "I don't know what I'm grabbing here." I love that. It's
That
so
poor
funny.
guy. Ugh,
He's like,
that poor
"I
there's
quit.
so many
I
just
quit."
cringe moments where you're just like, "Ugh, stop."
I love it. Cool, man.
It's so funny.
Well, good
Well,
talk. Good
thank you,
times.
brother.
Thanks for having me.
Appreciate you. Have an
Appreciate
awesome
you having
day.
me.
Yeah, man. Um, yeah. Well, everybody, I don't know if anybody's here right now live or not, but anybody who made it to the end, appreciate you guys, or listening later or whatever, however you consume this podcast, really appreciate it. Consider subscribing, sharing, leaving a review if you haven't done so already, and it would mean the world to me. Have a good day, everybody. See ya.